What is up, YouTube? Welcome to another Mock Draft Monday. And you may notice we've got a little bit of a change today, but that's okay. We'll get into that. We'll discuss that in a little bit. My name is Andrew. I will be your host this evening. And joining me is my good friend, Brian. I'd like to introduce him. Brian, why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Brian. Also on Twitter as Young Focus BA. Usually your friendly neighborhood troll, but also diehard Cardinal fan and friend of Mr. Arizona Sports over here, Andrew. And I'll be the guest host today.
I am so glad you're here with us, Brian. And you've got another friend that's a lot cooler than me, but maybe we shouldn't talk about that right now. But at some point, we may have to bring that up. But let's jump in here. Let's talk about where is our uncle? I know there may be a little bit of separation anxiety going on out there. You guys, we've been missing Dad for a little bit, and now our uncle has stepped away from us. But don't worry, he is still here. He is here. The spirit of Kyler is still with us. He will be handling all of our technology today, and he's going to be doing the back end kind of work for us. Long story short, Kyler's just not feeling very great. He's got, I think most people know he's got a little bit of health issues. I do too. I think Brian does too. We've kind of joked about being the chronic Cardinals between the three of us, but he's just not feeling great today. So he's going to help out on the back end, and we're going to handle the front end of things. So let's jump into some of these comments here. Oh, look, this, go figure. Joe, out of all people, was the first to comment. I am shocked. Do you see this face? Do you see this, Joe? I am shocked. But it is nice to be on that side of things, isn't it, Joe? I'm sorry, Father. We got Aaron over here. Aaron, how's it going? Just here to say linemen are the vegetable of football, and we must have our vegetables. I'm going to assume that was our, and I completely agree. I think we've talked about that a lot, is we definitely want to beef up the trenches on that. Over here, we've got, by the way, if I mispronounce any of these names, I'm horrible at names, so I'm going to apologize in advance right off the bat. We got Grandizer12. Welcome all Cardinals fans to the stream. Welcome NFL family and watching around the world. Hope I can't read today at all, apparently. Hope everyone is enjoying and having a good night. Let's go, Red Sea. I completely agree with that, Grandizer12. Let's go, Red Sea. We are getting so close. We are less than a month away from the draft. Aaron, I think he's mentioning over there, Brian, your jersey. You want to talk about that a little bit? Who you repping tonight?
I got my D-Rob jersey on for Mock Draft Monday. As if any of you had followed me or Andrew before, pre-mock draft last year about this time, I was on the Darius Robinson train, maybe one of the first. And I bought the jersey shortly after the draft. Fanatics might have taken quite a number of weeks to get that situated, but I am officially the minority president of the Darius Robinson fan club. Great guy, shout out. There's even so much to give me a follow because I posted a photo of just asking for an autograph. But great guy, and he's going to have a bounce back year this year. So I figured for Mock Draft Monday, with that meat and potatoes, draft the big uglies. Let's go ahead and throw on the Darius Robinson jersey tonight.
That's awesome, and I'm excited. I think there's a lot of us who are very excited to see Darius Robinson get back on the field, have a full season, have a full off season to get ready, and then get out there and see what he can actually do. I gotta say, like I said this the other day, I don't know if I've seen too many rookies that miss the first 10 weeks of the season and are getting instantly double teamed. I know Kyler left us now too. It's okay. Like I said, he is here. The only reason, Red Sea, why your comment's up is Kyler. You can thank him for that. Yeah, and it's Papa. I'm sorry. I'm already dropping the ball within the first 5 minutes of this. This is going to be a wonderful stream. Thank you guys for bearing with us this evening and joining us. I'm so excited. We're going to be hopping into the mock draft soon. There hasn't been a ton of news here in the free agency space since last week. There hasn't been a bit of free agency news that I'm aware of. If I'm mistaken on that, please feel free to correct me down below. And I hope we do well with the draft too. I think that's one of the big things on everyone's mind right now. on that note, I want to hop into actually a tweet that was put out this morning, because this is the one kind of little bit of nugget that came out today. I don't know if anybody saw this, but Monty was recently interviewed, and it was a very nice little interview. But here's a little blurb that we got out of this that's going to be kind of relevant to all of us. And Brian, I want to get your thoughts on this after, if you haven't seen this already. I'm sure you have, but here is the quote from Monty on the Cardinals draft needs. Quote, I feel like we're in a spot that really opens us up to be able to take the best player. There isn't one spot where we are like, we have to have that at 16 because we have to have someone immediately go in there. So I think, as some of us have been mentioning, we're kind of looking at best player available. So we're not locked in anywhere. Brian, what are your thoughts?
Well, I first off, I'd love to hear that from our GM, Monty Austinforth. I also think that it's still lying season for the GM, and that's a nice political response. I appreciate it. I remember last year that even we didn't know Marv was going 4 to us, and we still had the same vanilla quote. But you have to take it kind of in pieces. So the piece I get is he is comfortable with taking anybody because of the offseason that they've actually had. We have addressed this defensive line. We have re-signed players at key positions. Granted, we still have about $41 million in about effective cap space, and we do still have some other key free agents that are out there, and some other names to still be determined. So we're keeping our options open. So I think it was well for Monty to get that interview to, I believe it was Cards Chatter, Darren Urban, which is the writer for the Cardinals. And I think Theo Mackey also kind of echoed that tweet, and that, which is the Easy Central guy. Just want to make sure we give them credit. But I am pretty much on on the train of best player available because of what they've done. But at the same time, we know that they need to address this defense.
And I am kind of on the same mindset. And I think Red Sea is too. I don't know how much I buy that quote. It's lying season right now. But on the other hand, it's also kind of how what I've been saying for the last, about month or so is I think we're in a position where we don't have to force something. Like, we're not. I don't think they're going in going, we have to get the best defensive lineman there at 16, or we have to move up to get the guy that we absolutely want. I think they're going to let the board play out to them, and yeah, they're going to be targeting certain positions, and that's something that we've been talking about for a few weeks. There's a general theme to a lot of our mock drafts. If you look
Mm-hmm.
last year after Marv, everyone's mocks were different, right? Like, different positions, different players. This year, you see a lot of similarities, a lot of themes, repeated themes over and over and again. So I think those positions, that the ones that we've kind of identified, are definitely going to be targeted, but where will really depend on the board.
Yeah, I can see the Mark Jackson on there. Thank you for your comment. Just waiting for more stuff to happen. I wish we did a bigger splash in free agency, but I'm happy the one side of the line that was worked on. And yeah, I completely agree with that. We all wanted one of the big name free agents, as far as maybe a Max Crosby, Micah Parsons still to be determined. We'll see what happens with that. There's a lot of smokescreen there. Trey Hendrickson, will Cincinnati actually be able to get a deal done? I would just say just a small little nugget like on that. Nothing has put pen to paper yet. And if you look at, a lot of these teams have spent their effective cap space, and the Cardinals have the ability to still move around cap space. So if any one of these guys were to become available, a team like Arizona would be able to make offers. And some of these other teams that were interested in those players, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but at the same time, we've the window is a little bit cracked open on there, so we'll see what happens.
I completely agree with that. I don't think that necessarily anything's off the table. I think if the right deal presents itself, the right opportunity presents itself, yeah, you could definitely see something happen. We got a comment here in from Paul. How you doing today, Paul? With these long regular seasons and postseasons, drafting for depth has come into play more and more. Also, 100% true. Like this, it's very rare that you can get through a season without having at least a handful of significant injuries to some of your key starters. So, you know, having those positions kind of set is a great thing, but you're still looking to the future. You're still looking to build out that roster and get guys that can step in and still compete when the guy above them goes down. Next man mentality, next man up. We know that. And
Yeah. Grandizer, I see the comment to expect the Cardinals to double up and at the position or at the positions of need or triple dip. I wanted to actually bring that up. I think that they should. Now, will they? We don't know. They don't have as many picks as they did last year. You also got to look at the depth chart to see if you wanted to triple up at it, you would probably have to cut maybe Bilal Nichols or Justin Jones if you wanted to double up at D tackle, or if you would double up maybe on the edge, would that mean for maybe like Xavier Thomas or whatnot? You gotta play that numbers game. But what I will say, and usually gets ignored a lot, is Gannon doesn't like playing people for like more than 55, 60% of snaps. So they do want to have that depth of rotation to be able to have those star pass rushers actually fresh in the third and fourth quarter. So we're not getting like the ball run down our throat, or if on that third and long, because games are usually decided by that one score game on it, you want to be able to have Josh Sweat fresh in the fourth quarter and not have played 75% of the snaps. So I would say I could see both sides to it, especially that we know that Monty likes to trade down. So if they trade down a couple of times, I could see them definitely double dipping on that.
yeah, I think defensive line would probably be the most likely for us to double dip, especially because we've kind of talked about some of the different guys in the past, and they serve different roles. So you could be looking for kind of that more developmental nose tackle, maybe a little bit later on, maybe somebody that's kind of the plug and play 4-eye, three tech 4-eye type guy that kind of play alongside in that starting rotation. I could definitely see that for sure. I think that's the most likely position where we double dip. I think the rest of them, like you said, because we just don't have the exorbitant draft capital like we did last year after a million trade backs, and which we picked up a whole bunch of late picks. Hey, it worked out. We got some players. We definitely raised the floor of the team. We're just not necessarily in that position right now, barring another set of like a million trade backs on draft night, which is totally on the table. That's not off the table at all when it comes to money. So, but as it sits right now, defensive line seems like the most likely. Also agree with the comment, and I'm glad Kyler noticed this one here. Could be trying to, from Red Sea, could be trying to roll over cap space for McBride or keeping a good chunk in case they can magically pull off a trade for Parsons or Hendrickson. And if you're going to have to pull off a trade for Parsons, apparently he wants to be paid what, 200 million. He wants to be the highest paid non-quarterback, and Chase just beat Myles Garrett's mark, so that number just keeps going up and up and up. So you'll need some cap if you want to make that happen. I agree, 100%. And we definitely want to keep Marv around. Or I'm sorry, we want to keep Marv around too, but we definitely want to keep McBride around and make him the highest paid tight end. All
Yeah,
right.
with that. Oh, I was going to say just a comment on that. I know we have the almighty chart here. Just looking last year, they effectively rolled in about 13. Yeah, the almighty chart. Praise be him. Uh, Joe the Father, Joe the Son, and Joe the Holy Spirit over here, who's made us that chart. Um, they did effectively roll about I want to say about $12 million over. So if we were just to play devil's advocate about what they were going to roll over, and here's the almighty chart. Um, but so with that being said, so they probably would still spend about that 20ish to $25 million that they haven't spent. So they do have that type of money, and they could also cut Jalen Thompson if they really wanted to free up another 10 million. And you got Jonah Williams also. Granted, I don't really see that happening. They seem to have this continuity that they want to keep going with, which is perfectly fine. Another year in the system, you should be a lot better. And you have that those rookies to supplement, or the second and third year players that they want to draft and develop.
Yeah, I think I was kind of on the same mindset too on Jalen Thompson. I remember I was one of the people that was looking at his contract right at the end of the season just to kind of see where we are. And I know safety has been a position that we've met with several of them on our 30 visits. So I'm interested to see how that kind of plays out. I still expect at this point, I do expect Jalen to be on the roster and be in the rotation. I think Adrian Taylor Demerson will get some more playing time with that coverage ability. You've just got to find a way to get him on the field. So I don't expect us to do much with Thompson, but if you do, you could do it. I think post June 1st is how you do that one. And so that
Yeah,
could be something that could happen after the draft. We got
yeah.
another question here from Grandizer 12, and apparently I did get his name right. So That's just going to be sheer luck, not talent. I'm not going to lie on that. Brian and Andrew, are there any free agents out there that you hope the Cardinals would sign? If so, who and why?
I'll let you go first on that because I have to do some soul searching. If I You go
That's
first on that one.
totally fair. Totally fair. I think just right off the top of my head, the first name that I can think of that would be someone I'd be interested in, it would be Elijah Moore, somebody who is, similar to what we had in Rondale Moore, except he's taller. He can stay relatively healthier anyways. Just hasn't had a ton of consistency, but he's really explosive after the catch. He's one of those guys, he's really hard to bring down. Reminds me a lot of Dortch in some ways, which is a little bit more size and a little bit more of that initial burst. So I'd be interested in that in the slot if wide receiver was a position that we ended up not snagging in the draft.
Yeah, I had this name on there for, I know we talked about it before. Maybe it was over Twitter Spaces. Amari Cooper, just as a name that kind of has that Drew Petzing connection. I'm not saying I'm advocating for him, but he would make some sense, especially if with fits that Kyler Murray, how they want to have that mold of the bigger receiver. Fits the offense, knows the offense. He went to Buffalo, didn't complain. He would be a guy that, granted, he does play a lot of the similar role of the Michael Wilson role, but at the same time, it's just a different name out there. And then maybe if he wanted to re-sign Will Hernandez, I'd be on board with that just to solidify the offensive line. That way, we're not having to rely on Evan Brown to go ahead and make that giant leap. Even if you have him for I understand he can't stay healthy, but if you have him for half the season, that's half the season. You're not having to have Adams or Evan Brown or whoever is going to be able to be playing that right guard position. That you bridge that season, and especially if we want to go have a playoff game or two, you're just making that season shorter for either a rookie or somebody else.
Yeah, definitely kind of follow the DJ Humphries role. He took him a little bit to come back from injury. He eventually signed with Kansas City. Didn't necessarily work out, but at least he landed on the roster and got to be on the team that made the Super Bowl. Anyways,
And mhm.
What do you think about Jedrick Wills? Mono 187 over here is asking about Jedrick Wills to compete at right guard or right tackle. I know that's one that we've also talked about in our Twitter Spaces about a month ago, I think.
Yeah, I haven't done enough work as far as looking at his history past, as far as injury and his like his stats as far as like how he grades out. I understand the Drew Petzing connection, and they've already stole Froho from that kind of Petzing slash Austin Fort tree. So I would say the only way that makes sense is if you think Jonah Williams will not be healthy to start the year. And a lot of people, I know at the end of the year, thought he wasn't going to be healthy, and we're like expecting for him to be cut. I know Humphreys was cut around this time, so if he was going to get cut, I would assume it'd be like around this time. At the combine, Austin Force seemed to put that narrative to bed and said no. So I would just hesitate to see that. Now, if he's still available around camp time and there's some questions, that would definitely be a name that would make a lot of sense.
That makes sense for sure. Just yeah, I've tracked him a little bit just because it's a name that I've been interested in. I would be more interested in moving him inside personally rather than keeping him at right tackle. I think that's been some of his struggle is nobody's really kicked him inside, and I think he would be better. He was great his rookie year. He came on really strong, and then since then there's just been a decline in his overall play and consistency. And I think it's just because he's a little bit out of position. I think if you kicked him inside, it could work. But I'm also
Yeah.
with you in that it's nothing that I think is going to happen now. We'll want to wait until camp time and see where we're at there. Got Dakota also in here saying maybe restructure Kyler Murray, please. When we make more cap room, that could definitely work. I'm not sure how likely that is as of this moment with the additional bonuses that he got for being on the roster past a certain date with all that kicking in, I'm not sure if if he's looking to get anything done in that regard, at least this season, maybe next year. But I think this year he's probably going to want to capitalize on that additional money that he's getting. But it could be, and I think if he's somebody who really wants to win, especially next year, I could definitely see that being an option.
100%, 100%. Once he got that roster bonus, it's kind of put that to bed. Now they can still move money around. We understand the cap's still kind of one of those things that can be manipulated. We see these other teams pulling cap room out of there, you know what, and finding ways to sign these guys. So maybe if we have an owner that wants to cut a check here and there, or if something comes abide, we'll see.
Okay, you know what? That actually raises a really good point. And Dana's got a great point here. And I'm going to get to this in a sec because this is going to be a perfect non sequitur. But I do want to bring up a point because I've heard this and I've had this thought. And it's like I wanted to get this out. And this is a perfect chance for me to do it because, Kyler and Joe aren't here. So I'll be the one to get the point out. Michael Bidwell, okay. I'm not here to defend the guy at all. Trust me, I'm not. He's got his issues. But there is one sort of flawed mindset that I think that people have. It's that he's cheap when it comes to paying players. Like, he's cheap in a lot of ways. We know that 100%. But look at all the contracts that Steve Keim threw around. Like, look at the money he gave Jordan Phillips. Bidwell has never had a problem paying for players. That's not where his cheapness comes from. He may not want to give everybody the money that they want and, lets the GM kind of reallocate the funds in dumb ways. But he's never been afraid to cut the check. So the idea that the $23 million kind of cap for Milton Williams inherently came from Bidwell, I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. I could see Bidwell going up to 30 and just being like, is that what he's worth? Cool, here's the check. I think that was more of Monty's numbers, looking at the analytics, looking at knowing how much he's planning on playing in the rotation, saying, this is our number, this is what makes sense, and Bidwell going, okay, are you sure? I'll pay more. I don't know. That's just my thought, though.
Yeah, the Milton Williams contract, I know is reported by several outlets. They didn't want to go over a certain number. That might be a Monty thing. At the end of the day, it's still Bidwell that has to sign the check at the end of the day. So I guess we'll never know. We don't know if Monty's hiding behind Bidwell or it's vice versa. Once the numbers came out, it was kind of understanding that, okay, you didn't go get him. And a lot of us were kind of upset maybe in the moment. But at the same time, they filled that role and they paid a lot less than they needed to. So we'll see what happens. Milton Williams could go to the Patriots, and he couldn't be very good, or he could be really good. Is he a product of that? Playing next to one of the best young players in the league, and Jalen Carter, who was drafted by the Eagles, and they had that luxury too. So we'll see. I don't think he was worth that much money. I understand, but hey, they tried. They were in there to the end. They tried to they tried to steal him from the Panthers. The Panthers were rumored like right away, hey, the Panthers are going to be signing Milton Williams to this deal, and then you see like 20, 30 minutes later, I think there's like an Eagles reporter that was saying, no, the Cardinals but at the end of the day, the Patriots had the most money to give out. They had the most cap space. They went into an auction with $10 more than everybody else could pay. So that's why they won those services.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. So jumping back into Dana's point here, this is, like I said, it's perfect segue here. So Dana says, I wouldn't expect early for safety, but there are a number of guys that I think excel in off-zone schemes we run: Bowman, Renstraw, even Shamari Simmons, undrafted. And I think that's a really good point because Kyler and I originally had an idea that we're just going to keep rolling with. We are going to quickly, before we jump into the mocks, we wanted to talk about a couple of our favorite late day prospects, ones that maybe have gone under the board a little bit. So let's start off with Billy Bowman, since Dana brought him up, because that is one of my favorite later day kind of developmental prospects out of Oklahoma. He's a 5'10", 200-pound senior out of Oklahoma. If you look at his PFF grades, he had a 76.0 coverage grade. He had a 74.9 defensive overall defensive grade. Finished his final season with 54 total tackles, 3 tackles for loss, 2 interceptions, and 3 pass breakups. He's somebody that I really think could develop into a safety that fits our scheme. I've got some additional notes on him. Give me one sec while I pull those up. That's on me. I thought I had that ready, and then I realized, no, I clicked out of it. Why did I do that? Because why not, right? Like, why make things easy on myself? The funny thing is, I think I even had the notes on a different slide, and I told Kyler, no, it's okay. I have it pulled up. It's fine. Yeah. And here we are.
That's
Scrolling.
it's one hell of a name, Billy Bowman Jr. It sounds like one of those mega players, but like Billy Bob Thornton, but it's Billy Bowman Jr. Go ahead.
That's 100% right. Oh my God, where did I find? Now I can't find it, of course, because I'm in the wrong chat. That works.
All right, give us your rundown on him.
This is one of those like, oh my God, I'm cracking under the weight of the pressure. It's okay. There we go. Okay, got it here. Okay, Billy is also getting it back into the flow of things here. Billy is also a former 4-star prospect out of Denton, Texas. In 2023, he had 6 interceptions, including 3 pick sixes and a school record 238 yards off of interceptions. He is another one of those coverage type safeties. He can get up into the box and he can make some tackles, but he's really more of a rabbit type of mold. He's somebody that I think could fit in the rotation because if you think about it, you've got Jalen Thompson, who we've talked about. It's a little bit more of a box safety. Buddha, of course, is the king of the box with 100 and God, how many 80 tackles did he have last year or whatever. Then you got Rabbit, who's a coverage guy, and then you could add this one. Now you've got 2 of each, and you can just kind of rotate them, keep them fresh, keep them healthy. You got your 2 main starters, the veterans, and you got the 2 young guys to kind of sit, learn, develop, and play in certain situations. I absolutely love me some Billy Bowman Jr. Again, not necessarily high, but a later round pick.
Yeah, it seems like it would definitely fit the mold of what they've already drafted before. Obviously, they still love Buddha, so that seems to be the type of guy that would fit the Gannon mold. We all know that Gannon got his start with coaching the corners, or at least elevating corners on that Philly team. And I think he also coached there in Indy, and also when he was over there. So this prospect would make a lot of sense, especially as a late round flyer that Monty likes to take.
Definitely. I agree with that as well. Now, moving on from my late round to Kyler's late round. This is a guy that he has definitely mentioned before. We've talked about him some, but we've got one Willie Lampkin. Willie Lampkin is a guard center, probably going to be a center, depending on which source you look at. He's listed as both, but we've also mentioned he's probably going to be a center. Out of North Carolina. He just missed getting coached by Bill Belichick by 1 year. That just clicked in my head. I'm sure he's actually a little disappointed by that. But anyways, getting back to Willie Lampkin, he's 5'11", 290 pounds senior. He's got 10 and 1/8 inch hands. He's got 31 and a half inch arms. I believe this is at his pro day. He ran a 5'2" 40 with a 23 and a half inch vertical and 8.5. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Sorry, now my screen's getting small. 8 foot, 8 inch broad jump and 18 bench reps. I think Kyler's got a little bit more. He's got some additional information on Willie here on the next slide. So looking at some of the production and games play in 2024, he played 12 games, allowed 0 sacks, only 4 hits allowed, 4 hurries allowed, finished with a PFF run blocking grade of 87.6, pass blocking grade of 88.8, a zone run scheme grade of a 90.4, and a gap run scheme grade of 75.9. Guy is a dude. I really like Willie Lampkin a lot too. He's one of those guys that, he may be a little undersized, as we all know. That's kind of the big knock on Mr. Lampkin over there. But the guy just is, he plays so much bigger than his size, and he's got so much dog in him. Like those scans that they do with the dog, if he did that, he would have like 5 of them all over, I think, in his lungs. Guy is just, He's got the right mentality, and I loved what he did at the Senior Bowl. Just watching him against Deion Walker just really kind of opened my eyes. Now, I've got my own thoughts on Deion Walker, but that's for another time. But Brian? What are your thoughts on Mr. Willie Lampkin over here? I think he's kind of become
um,
like our John Michael Smith this year in a way. We don't have a theme song.
yeah, his name is not my name too. If that's John Jacob Jr. Heimer Smith or from him from last year. Uh, Not the biggest fan of him, to be honest. I don't. I. It's a really good story. I hope the best for him. Um, there's some red flags that I don't know if I think can be overcome. I will be rooting for him, but I would pass unless it is like a sixth or seventh round pick. To be honest with you, uh, there's other prospects that I think that would be more deserving, and I believe he's a project. And right now, I don't want to be drafting too many projects. That's just my personal opinion.
That's
And I
totally
think
fair.
and wasn't his RAS score like comparable to the Cardinals like report card grade point average too?
I actually do have that here. If we want to talk about that, I can bring that up. I was going to try and avoid that because we were talking about our favorite prospects. But yeah, we could talk about his RAS score. Sorry, Brian.
You're
Actually,
good.
no, I apologize. I do not have his RAS score. I had Tyler Booker's RAS score, and that one is also Tyler Booker is another name I know a lot of Cardinals fans are very interested in. I think Kyler had him in the going in the first round to us, and he's somebody
Yeah.
that I liked at one point. I just don't necessarily think he's the right scheme fit for us. He also had a 3.68 RAS score, which is really, really low.
Anytime your RAS score is cheaper than gas, we're gonna have some problems here. That's just some problems we're gonna have to go through.
Facts.
You know.
Absolute
And I'm
facts.
not talking about Costco gas. I'm talking about like you went to California and it's still cheaper than that. I mean, we all know. Come on.
All right. And now we've
And I'm
got
speaking as
another
an unathletic tall guy too, so way past my prime. But come on, guys.
got another question here from Grandizer. So this is a good question too. I think I've I am so Billy Bowman wouldn't necessarily be that for me. I think middle of the round, guys. If we're talking about draft crushes that I would run to the podium if they're there, would be a Miles Frazier in like the fourth. If he fell to the fourth round, that would be an interior offensive lineman that I'm just not even thinking about it. I'm mechanically just letting my hand write the name on the card and just sending it up there and not even think about it. Any names that pop into your mind for that, Brian?
For I am so bad when it comes to this like late round guys because especially this year, and I was going to get into this later, but um, after this is one of the years where I mean I've been following the draft since you could pick up. I mean I used to pick up since the Patrick Peterson draft probably, um, but to be honest, no one's popping into my head as far as like a late round person. Um, you'll have to get back
What
to me
about
on that one. Get back to me.
I was gonna say, what about some early round names? What are some like first, second round names that you're interested in?
Definitely a big Harmon guy. That's the guy that him or let's see, Harmon. Um, any of the offensive tackles. I would say Memba would be a dream. Probably not going to happen. Um, Guy from Old Miss, defensive tackle. Can't. He's
Walter Nolan.
Walter Nolan. I've been on that Walter Nolan train for a while. Just go ahead and ignore all the red flags about that one. You know how I just didn't want to talk about the other guy's red flags, but or this guy's, but or I, I I can't be talked into James Pierce or Mike Green. I'm pretty sure they're off the Cardinals draft board. Uh, Give me JT from Ohio State as far as like a second round edge rusher. So, in my opinion, it's going to be a defensive line guy first and then edge guy second. Or hey, just give me that meat and potatoes. Give me those those offensive and defensive line difference makers, or you can sell me on a front seven guy. So if the good linebackers there in the second round, give me that Daryl Washington 2.0 type, uh, linebacker. Now that Weed's okay, and he won't be suspended, so we'll be okay.
So I take it you're out on Jalen Walker then in the first.
I think Jalen Walker will be gone before the Cardinals pick, and I do not think the Cardinals are going to want to trade up.
That's fair. That's totally fair. I was gonna say with some of the guys you just named, I don't know if you know. I think it's Cardinals Draft Connoisseur on X, Twitter. Wow, I actually used the right branding for once in my life. If you know Cardinals Draft Connoisseur on Twitter, you made him really happy with the first one, and then the next three names you just really made him mad. But it's okay.
I just got to keep everyone lukewarm. I don't want to pick favorites. It's my first day here, so just trying to make friends with everybody. And then the next couple times, I'll make sure to poke fun at people. I don't
And
want Papa Joe coming at me first day one.
well, I mean, we've kept him pretty tamed so far. So, I think we're doing okay. Robert also agrees with you on JT. He's a big JT guy, and and JTT. Sorry, I left out the other T. But yes, I like JTT a lot. I think he's getting a little underrated here in the class. And if he was there at 47, he's another one that I would probably run to, depending on what other names were on the board there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Definitely small house day, guys. All right. I think that is sufficient. We did about 36 minutes there of intro, talking about some of the news, talking about some overall stuff. Let's get into the meat and potatoes, as we were talking about, of the drafts. And let's get this slide going. Thank you again, Brian. Thank you again, Kyler, for being there to support us technologically. I cannot speak apparently today at all. This is what happens when you talk to people all day over the phone. Brian can relate to this. And then you get on here and you're like, I can't talk anymore. It's great. So let's jump in here to Kyler's mock. So we'll review his here. Brian, can you see that from your screen? I know you're a little bit smaller here.
Yeah, so I can see a little bit of it.
Okay, I'll read
But
it. I'll read it. No problem. I just wanted to see. I was gonna give you the chance to do a little bit of theater work here and try and play Kyler, but I don't want you to have to squint and make yourself blind. So I'll read those off for you. So in the first round, he's got your guy going there with a Walter Nolan after a trade back with the Bucks. And we end up picking up round 4, 121, and it looks like a 6th round pick next year. And we get obviously pick 19, and that's where we go with Walter Nolan. Then in the second round, he's got hyper athletic edge Brady Swinson out of LSU. Definitely a riser on boards. I've been seeing his name get a lot of hype from not just Cardinals fans, but a lot of people across the draft community. Round 3? Yeah, round 3, we've got Trey Harris, another Ole Miss guy, a wide receiver who is another guy who's getting a lot of buzz, getting a lot of comparisons to some really big names out there. He's got some comparable measurements to some guys like AJ Brown, things like that. So start looking at that. It's kind of interesting. And he's also somebody that the Cardinals have had a 30 visit with. Then going to the 4th round, we've got actually going back to back there in the 4th round. We've got 2 of my other favorite players here. We've got Jeffrey Bossa, the converted safety out of Oregon. Kyler, if you're there and you can speak, how badly did this hurt you to draft 2 Oregon guys? I think we won't let him stress, but that probably hurt him a lot to have to do that. So I feel very, very honored the fact that he picked 2 of my guys that it probably hurt him quite a bit. So Jeffrey Bossa and then a Jamari Caldwell. I love both those guys. And Kobe King, who I was very unprepared to talk about. I've got a lot of notes on Kobe King now, and I actually really fell in love with him. Real quick overview. Kobe is basically the exact opposite of the linebackers that we've signed in free agency. He is not very good in coverage, but he is an amazing run defender. He's got, his instincts are great. He defeats blockers with his hands really well. His instincts are so great. He beats the lineman to the spot consistently. Like once he sees the run, he's like, I know exactly where this is going. He just gets there first and completely washes out the line. It's great. I love Kobe King. He's super fun. And then lastly, with the last pick, we got guard Timothy McKay. And Kyler's just, had to throw me one that I don't know too much about McKay. So I'm not even going to try and pretend that I have a whole lot of information on McKay right now. I do not. So if anyone has any information about McKay they'd like to share, drop it below, and Kyler will definitely throw it up there since I am slacking on this one. Mac saying Trey Harris is growing a lot on me. I agree, Mac. I like Trey a lot. The more I watch him, the more polished he looks. Have you seen? Again, there's the ability to speak. Have you seen much on Trey there, Brian?
I have seen some, definitely some film on him on the Twitter streets. This Nolan Kindici, comparison is making me cry a little bit on the inside. I don't see that no one's fallen out of any windows recently, so I'm going to say that that's okay. And as long as Chris Jones isn't 2.0 doesn't go out in front of him, I'll be okay with that. Kandichi also used to hang out around, any club he could ever be in too. So just knowing that from experience, whether in Scottsdale or Tempe, so I have some beef with Kandichi. So I really hope that it's not him. Uh, I love the trade back, Brady Swinson. He's been growing on me a lot. Obviously, we've hit the well as far as with the LSU pass rushers. We took BJ Ojolard a couple years ago. Hopefully, he can come back. Swinson, obviously, great pass rusher. I believe his run defense is kind of where everyone questions him. Your two Oregon guys, the linebacker. I do like him. Granted, I think he's going to go sooner than people think. Let's see, Robert Moore Caldwell seems to be the must second D tackle, but Ty Tomlinson just fits too well. I would agree with that. Yeah, that would definitely be a pretty good fit. You want to have somebody behind Tomlinson, whether it usually someone similar projectables that's worked really well in the past. And it's nice to have somebody in there with a veteran like Tomlinson to be able for that rookie just to be that little lost puppy and just absorb everything like a sponge. So I definitely agree with that.
Yeah, and I do want to clarify something. I'm not actually an Oregon fan. Like I've said, I'm college agnostic. I just ended up watching a lot of Oregon guys this year and just fell in love with them. But I'm not actually like an Oregon fan over here, guys. So
I saw your
don't think.
Dylan Gabriel, jersey back there. I'm just kidding.
Oh, Dana's coming in here. When I look at film, I usually do the two. Oh my, yeah. Try this one more time. Stop, rewind. Okay, when I look at film, I usually do the two top statistical games and the worst to start. But if they shined in a different game, I like to know. I think that's a pretty good process. You kind of take a look at some of the best, some of the worst of the best, and then I usually try and throw in like a middle tier game if I can find it. I have finally got a new source of all 22 films, so I'm really excited about that. So next year is as underprepared as I have been this year. That's how prepared I will be next year because like I said, I've been really behind. My old source for 22 just kind of went away, so I've got a much better one now, and I've got so much of it to go through. Kobe King and Jeff Bossa are on more of my draft boards. I like both of them. I really do. I think Bossa is the more all around type linebacker. He can do a lot of different things, and Kobe King is just your traditional like old school run stuffing, stick your nose in there and make a lot of people mad.
And they definitely need that there. And they have, some players there now who they've signed where they don't have to play these guys right away. So a lot of these make sense. And I believe actually this does pretty much follow the almighty board and whatnot as far as, third round wide receiver, first round defensive tackle, and the edge. So I think Kyler, even though he's not here, he's in the background. He has been making sure to worship the almighty board to hopefully recover much faster. So
yeah, I don't know what Joe did to him in between the weeks 1 and weeks 2, but I don't know. He had some black eyes or something. I don't know. I didn't ask him that. No, Kyler, I think overall this is a great draft, and I definitely would be happy if this is how things played out for sure.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Should we go to mine? So I tested out one of the new mock draft simulators that was going around. I think I will get the actual Twitter handle of this before we hop off tonight. But there was another free one that was made this weekend and shared out, and I am super happy that they did this. I tested it out. It works a lot better than I would have expected. It was just one guy who decided to go do this for the community and put this out there. It's not behind a paywall. So I will, like I said, I will definitely make sure I grab that name. I've got it saved. I just got to look it up here. I will get his name. So if anybody wants to go test out the simulator, go for it. Like I said, it's completely free. It's not perfect. It's definitely got a couple little issues, but I really enjoyed it. So with my first one, I decided to go with another meat and potatoes guy. I went with Josh Simmons. Again, I do. The more and more I've watched, I have decided that I like Membo a little bit better. I think he's a little bit more technically sound. There's some things that Josh does, and Aaron Van Buren put out a really good video about this. If you guys haven't seen that, I would highly recommend that. But he breaks down some of the technique flaws in Simmons' game, and there are coaches that will advocate for what's basically called the one arm punch, which can work, but you've got to have a very solid base, and that's where Simmons can sometimes get out of whack as his footwork gets a little messed up. But all in all, I still think he's a really solid player. Obviously, we've got Justin Fry now, so he's got that connection. I would be really shocked if we don't wind up with at least one of either Josh Simmons or Donovan Jackson at some point. Just having Fry on the roster, knowing that that's a position that we can look to get a little bit deeper at, I would be very surprised if we don't land one of those guys somewhere. But you never know. The way things work out, who knows? Then I went with another Ohio State guy, and that was just more so because it was more a scheme fit. Went with the run stuffing Tyleik Williams. Got a little bit of pass rushing upside. Again, more that meat and potatoes, building up the trenches, kind of a Dalvin Tomlinson protege, if you will. Going into round 3, I went with Jaden Royals. We need another wide receiver. We've talked about that being a position of need, something that we're looking at, and I really like Jalen. He's fun. He's fast, but he catches everything. And don't even, go ahead and double him if you want. He'll just catch it between you. It's totally fine. Then going in with my next third round pick after the trade down, I forgot. I did do a trade down in this one with, I believe it was the Chargers. Yeah, I had the Chargers trading up to snag actually Kenneth Grant in that situation. I remember specifically who I had them trading up for. But I went in the next third round pick with, I'm just going to call him Femi because I know that's one of his nicknames is Femi Oladejo. He's another one of those guys that we've had a 30 visit with. Kind of another one of those sort of hybrid linebackers. He's played off ball. He's played edge. I think he projects to be a little bit more of an edge, but you could have him fill that Mac Wilson role where he plays on the edge in some sets and plays off ball in others. Fourth round, I went with the more traditional off ball linebacker with a Barrett Carter guy out of Clemson, another super athletic guy. Could work on his play strength a little bit, but I really like his upside. Fifth round, RJ Mickens, safety. Again, just a late round safety projection, somebody that we can pick up, kind of have him develop in the rotation behind some of these guys, the veterans. And in the 7th, I went with a Johnny Walker Jr. I really started liking him the more I started digging into him. I know Kyler being a big Darius Robinson fan, I was interested in some of the Missouri guys. There was a conversation we were talking about, so I looked into him. He reminds me so much, and it's not just the school, but he really does remind me a lot of Marcus Golden. Like everything about him, sort of his frame, his play style. Yeah, I like him. I think he would be really fun in our defense.
Give me all the Buckeyes. Mac Williams. Give me all the Buckeyes. I would tend to agree with that. They've done pretty well for us. They just won a national championship. Obviously, they don't always translate front and back to us. See Robert Moore. I just can't risk a top pick on a player like Simmons with all that type of injury. We discussed the injury on Discord. It doesn't seem like it's something to good look long term. As long as you have that cleared with your team doctors and whatnot, if they sign off on it, I think I'd be fine with it. AZ Jace, career 180 off the patella tendon, good, because in terms of this, we're still playing Jack Conklin, but was always injured still. I would agree with that. Injury issue is going to be reasons why he slips, if he slips. He did work out during his pro day. I know that it was that came out. Drew, you brought that up last week. That there was reports at first he wasn't going to work out. He did do some sets. Now he did not do a full did not do a full workout. But from what I was reading, that he should be ready to go by camp. So that usually with as long as the medical's clear, by what April drafts in 20 and some odd days, I would assume, I mean, the most he could slip maybe to is that early part of the second round.
Yeah. I think if there's going to be an outlier, Josh Simmons has the athletic profile to be that outlier. The fact that he worked out already, nobody works out 5 months after a patellar tendon, and he just did it. It wasn't a full workout, it wasn't a crazy workout, but even just doing when he did is already ahead of the curve from so many guys. So obviously 100%. That's one of those that the medical staff has to clear off on it. We've got to get that sign off from Justin Fry himself. There's been some questions about his character, and I don't want to say character. That's the wrong phrase. More mentality. If he's got the right mentality for the game, those reports came up really late, so I don't necessarily know how much stock I put into that. Like some of the other guys that we've talked about, Pierce, Nolan, Green, even Maxwell Harrison, we've known about those things for months. So you start seeing these things come up late, and it's like seems very gas mask-esque to me. But I digress. And as Dana mentioned here, Tyreek isn't necessarily a pass rusher, as others have said, but doesn't mean he isn't pushing the pocket 100%. He is definitely more of the run-stopping guy, but he's got more pass rushing upside than some people are willing to give him credit for. He's definitely strong. He moves guys. He creates disruption at the very least. He maybe not getting a ton of one-on-one wins and getting a lot of sacks, but he's definitely causing disruption in the game.
Yeah, I mean, you just honestly, I think people we fall in love with the sacks because they're sexy, and we stop the quarterback and whatnot, and we get to the quarterback, but that sometimes can be a misnomer. It's really hard to get sacks in this league, but if we can't stop the run, that's where you really run into a lot of problems. And if that guy can eat up blocks like he did over at Ohio State, that changes like the game for us, makes it a lot easier. Eat up double teams, you leave your pass rushers one on one. The one question I had about him was he the guy that he was running his 40 and he got eaten by the turf monster?
Yes. He
And
fell at his pro day, and we all panicked, and I had a heart attack and thought that he was going to be out for the entire year. But no, he's fine. He's totally fine. He got up.
what?
He's good.
Okay, was that like registered on the Richter scale? Was it like a 3.1? Slight shake. What was it? Because that was, I mean, he was moving and then he fell. But yeah, you're right. I did see that he did come back. Hey, maybe that pushes him down further to us. I think honestly, when you look at Justin Fry being the coach, I think everyone wants to connect the dots of, oh, that's going to make sure we're giving offensive linemen. When you're practicing in college and whatnot, when you're doing your 7-on-7s and whatnot, he would have some knowledge about those defensive linemen also. So I just want to make sure that when we bring that up, we bring that he has knowledge about all the Ohio State players, and we've had that established connection. So maybe we could be connecting the dots in those wrong spots, but that is something we can also think about also.
No, you're 100% right, and not even just within Ohio State, even in the entire Big Ten. He's going to know a lot about the Michigan guys. He's going to have a lot to say about Josiah Stewart. He had a game plan for him plenty, so he's going to know what his strengths and weaknesses are too. So that's a really good point. I agree with that 100%. All right. You know what? I didn't see a whole ton of me getting ripped apart other than Josh Simmons for his injury thing. So I am going to take that as a win, especially considering how my mock was last week. But then again, I took Cam Skadaboo in the second, so I deserved it. Let's get
If you
to
have anything else,
no,
to say about his mock, just drop it in the comments after, and I'll make sure to go through and like it for you.
Good call. I appreciate the support there, Brian. Let's get to the real reason why you guys are here. Your box. Let's start talking about y'all. So, Erba, we've got the first mock here from you guys. Erba with the 16th pick went wide receiver. I like it. With Emeka Ibuka, as we're talking about Ohio State guys. We've got another one to talk about here in the second round. And I think think the way I'm going to do a little bit different than Kyler, and you guys can tell me if which way you like better. And if you like Kyler's way better and Joe's way better, I'll go back to that way. But I'm going to go through all the picks, and then we can go back through and talk about some of them, just because that's the way my brain processes stuff. So blame it on my brain. So first we got Emeka Egbuka in the second round. We got another Ohio State guy that we've talked about. Brian, you mentioned him, JT Taylamalu, something like that. With pick 87, we went with an Omar Norman Lott, and I've definitely got some thoughts on him. I'm loving the fact that we're seeing some Billy Bowman today. That's great. We got Billy Bowman there at 115. At 133, we got another guy that I really like at Oklahoma, middle linebacker Danny Stutzman. 196, we got guard Connor Colby going with that interior line. 25, you got another offensive lineman, Brandon Crenshaw Dixon out of Florida. And at 228, we've got a Donovan Edwards, got running back out of Michigan, who's really fallen out of favor. But I remember last year he was high up on people's boards. Brian, what are some names that jump out? Anybody that really jumps off the page on Erva's mock here for you?
Yeah, they went wide receiver first round. That's quite bold. I wouldn't necessarily think that this would happen unless there was a trade down. I like the prospect. I believe they were a lot of a slot player. They move around a lot, so the versatility is there. Like you said, JTT, big fan of him. Jack Sawyer got like a lot of the hype around the Valley and whatnot, as far as from other people around the Twitter streets. But I believe JTT's the better prospect. Omar Lott, like you said, I think we've talked about it before. Ex ASU player, defensive tackle. Fills the need. I like this. I think this is pretty solid. It's a little bit different. Some of the similar names, but a lot of these are pretty trendy names. So, it's a good job.
I really like this. I love the fact that you went with Abuka on there just because it's, again, something different, something we haven't talked about. I think he is severely underrated. Now, I know Robert is not a fan of wide receiver in round one back-to-back years, but the rest of the draft was really nice. So he gave you a B. Good job. Getting anything above like a C plus from Robert to me is an instant win. So congratulations on that one. I really like Abuka. I think he is severely underrated in this class. I know there was another comment from Brian93 here. It says Abuka will fall to round two, calling it. I could see it. I absolutely could see it. I also could see him being wide receiver too off the board because his floor, I think, is higher than some of these other guys. Like that dude was in a room with Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, Marvin Harrison Jr., and Jackson Smith-Njigba, and still produced and you could say, okay, well, that is, a product of the room around him. Well, he kept losing those guys until it was literally just him and Jeremiah Smith, and he still produced. And he produced at consistent levels across multiple different quarterbacks. So I don't know. I like Abuka. He does struggle a little bit to separate, as Dana mentions here. I do agree with that. But with the ball in his hands, the guy is a lot shiftier than people realize. I think he ended up running like a 4.43, 4.45, somewhere in that range at his 40. He's got a little bit more speed than some people were realizing. Again, he's just consistent. He's just one of those guys. He's going to come in, depending on the team and the scheme that you're putting him in. He's going to catch 50 balls a year for 500 yards, 5 touchdowns, year in and year out at worst. So I think it's a safe pick. I like him personally. Era, I like your draft. I think it's fun. Addresses a lot of our needs, and I like all of the names on there too. Brendan Crenshaw Dixon's another one that I was getting into a little bit lately. And we like our Florida tackles. Apparently, we had some success with the last one we took, so I wouldn't be upset with that at all.
Yeah.
All right, moving on here. We've got Karvich. So Karvich also did a trade back in the first round. Let me see if I can read the details on this. I apologize, guys. My eyes are also, like I said, I stare at a screen a lot. Oh, thank you, Brian. I appreciate that. So with the trade back, Arizona receives pick number 24 and a third round pick, number 97, as well a 2026 third round pick, getting that little sweetener in the deal there. And we give Minnesota back pick number 16 and a seventh round pick, number 225. That was the pick we got for Cameron Thomas, I believe. So yeah, go ahead and take that, Minnesota. I don't care. We'll take your 3rd round pick back for that. I would be happy with that trade back. And then with 24th pick, you went with Josh Simmons. Definitely went with the same. We're in the same mindset there, Garbage. And then at 47, we got Darius Alexander. 78, we went with edge rusher Kyle Kennard out of South Carolina. 97, we've got Omar Norman Lott, pass rusher, defensive tackle, out of Tennessee. 115, Savion Williams, another name that we have not talked about a lot, so we will definitely touch on him a little bit. And at 152, we've got my guy, Jeffrey Bossa. Karvich, just for that, you get an A for me. But no, I'm just kidding. I really do like this draft as well. Again, some names that we've seen before, some names that we haven't. I really like the Savion Williams pick too. I think he is an interesting player. He is definitely more of a risk, so I definitely like getting him here at 115. I've seen him projected in the 2nd round some places. I think that's a little bit high. One, he's a TCU wide receiver, and I know don't scout the helmet, but name me one TCU wide receiver in your lifetime that's worked out. I can't.
Jahad, never mind.
Can you? I haven't come up with one yet. I've been thinking about that for a while. I just can't find one. But Savion I like because he's really fun. He can do a lot of different things. He is one of those guys you can line him up in the backfield and run the Wildcat with him because he did that at TCU. So he would be an interesting kind of chess piece. The only real question with him is Monty creative enough to actually use him right?
You mean Drew Petzing. So yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I dislike this draft. I don't like the value from going back from that many spots. I think you probably should have got more off the Bill Parcells chart. I could be wrong. I don't hate the pick of Josh Simmons. To have the Darius brothers in the defensive tackle room kind of would interest me. And for me, I just want to point out it's different. Like I know we've seen this a lot in the mock draft Mondays, but the different sites that have the player values is so interesting to me, just because there's always this person has it ranked here, right there, like ranked whatever, and then there's also this where the NFL scouts has them ranked, how the media has them ranked. So it'll be interesting to see. And like I said, I think this year is going to be come around probably mid round 2. It's going to be wild. I think it's going to be one of those years where you're going to have people that are sitting there that we're going to be scratching your head like, why is this person sitting there? Maybe for like an extra round or two, and hopefully that just benefits us.
I mean, and that happens every year, but you're right. This year is even we talked about some of the experts that have talked about how crazy this year is. And Lance Zierlein just today, another one. We got another one who's like, I don't even know. This is nuts. Trying to do these mocks is so hard. Dana's here talking about Kyle Kennard, saying Kyle Kennard's fall off from spring scouting has been precipitous. It's so true. He was at one point projected as one of that kind of first tier, the next level of edge rusher guys, probably early 2nd round, and I don't even know if he's going to go in the 2nd at this point. Probably more middle 3rd. So that's an interesting one. I like Kennard. I also kind of agree with some of the fall off. He just does not pop off the screen so often. When he's good, it's really, really good. It's just not that good consistently enough for him to be going that high. And then Omar Norman Lott fell off of athletic limitations. Now I'm old. IIRC. Brian, help me out. What is that?
Limitation. I thought it was arc there for a second, but I'm on my phone, so it's sometimes kind of hard to see. But just going off of athletic limitations, I know there were some character issues coming out of Tennessee. Maybe it was that, or maybe it was some of the maybe moving laterally side to side. At least from what I can just remember off the top of my head. If I remember correctly. Okay. But
that was funny.
Okay. So I'll let you finish to answer that one, but no. Yeah, I don't know why he fell off.
Oh, sorry.
Good.
Yeah, Norman's definitely got some. He has those athletic limitations, but as we mentioned last week, Coleman had shared some interesting deeper dive data that actually shows that, and of all these guys, Norman Lott's actually one of the most efficient pass rushers by quite a large margin, actually. So, oh, Red Sea's calling for Dad. I know. No, I don't know if he was actually calling for him or shouting out because he was there. But there, I know. I actually don't know if that was Dad or our uncle over there, Kyler. It was one of the two. But I appreciate the save on my lack of modern day slang.
it
That was the beloved
it
uncle. Okay, that's what I thought. That's what I thought. Okay. Yeah,
it came
Professor
from
is in
above.
here as the professor. The
There we
sociology
go.
professor specifically. My mistake. See, we're an hour into this and I've dropped the ball so many times. I'm never hosting this again.
You're doing fine on here. We've dropped it, but we've fumbled recovered them all. So we're our turnover margin isn't that bad.
That's right. You guys are just you're Trey McBriding and Holody Froholting me, so I appreciate that. Robert is also a big fan of Norman Lott. Extremely fast, nimble defensive tackle. His lateral movement is good. His inconsistency is finishing tackles. Okay, that's right.
Okay, then I
With it,
misremembered. That's my bad.
yeah, no, I did too. Dude, there's so many interior defensive linemen in this class. Trying to keep all of their strengths and weaknesses straight can be difficult at times. So you're getting F and getting grounded all in one fell swoop. You know what?
Wow.
I didn't hear that I'm getting kicked off, so I can accept that. I will totally take the grounding. That is fine.
I like
Carvage.
staying home anyways. It's okay. Homebody.
Well, thank you, Robert. I appreciate the support for sure, and it's nice to be able to be on screen here for you guys. Like I said, Carvage, I like your draft. It may not have been an A draft for me, and I know there were some kind of mixed reviews there in the chat, but overall, like I said, I think you addressed the needs. I think you got some names that are definitely recognizable, some that we've talked about, and I like it when we get some names in there that we haven't seen before, like Savion. So let's go on to Red Sea. Red Sea is definitely gone with the more recent trend of going with Will Johnson there in the first round, stuck at 16, and it just went best player available, and I like it. We'll touch on that. Then we had another trade here in the second round. Cardinals got pick 58. We picked up a third rounder, number 91, and a fourth rounder, 136? Yep. And we gave Baltimore back pick 47 and a fourth round pick. I believe that's next year. So then in the second round, we picked up another name that we've been seeing quite a bit. This guy is definitely rising up people's boards. I think a lot of people saw that Coleman tweet and they're putting him on their radar there. Omar Norman Lott. We've got Marcus Mbao there. Is it Mbao or just Bow? I think it's Bow. That's my bad. We got Marcus Bow there in the third round, and then with our next third round pick, we went with another one of my favorite guys. We went with Brandon Graham 2.0 and David Walker, and we've got Jamari Caldwell there with the fourth round. So again, a couple of the guys that I've hyped up here and I really like. Then in the next fourth round pick, we got linebacker Jack Kaiser out of Notre Dame. He's another one kind of in that Kobe King model. He is not necessarily the most athletic. He doesn't have the best coverage ability, but he's definitely a dog in the run game and will get after it. And then the next pick there, we got a guard, Luke Kandra out of Cincinnati. Next couple there, we got safety Dean Clark. And last pick, we got wide receiver Arian Smith out of Georgia. A couple guys I don't know a whole lot about, so I'm not going to sit here and pretend to be an expert. So anybody who's got some information there, drop it below. And unfortunately, Red Sea, I'm sorry, but you failed the professor's test. He gives you an F. He's the professor. I'm just the teacher's assistant here. So I can't disagree. I can't override him. I'm sorry. It's an F minus.
Instead of Professor X, I don't have our Professor Joe. It's Professor F. You don't get to join these X-Men of Cardinals over here because you have disgraced the almighty chart. The chart may yet be forgiven if the board falls the way it does. My opinion, I don't want to give this one a grade because I like the value. I like the players. They have to have some sort of conviction that Will Johnson is that number one corner to justify this pick. He was supposed to be a top 5 guy. He had an injury. He fell off. So there's some questions about it. I like him as a corner. I just don't know if he's a number one corner. So I can be sold on it. Obviously, uh, these other players I like. I like the positions, meat and potatoes, and a little bit splashy when they wanted to try to get there later and take some flyers.
Yeah, overall, I'm actually with Jace. I think this is one of my favorite personal ones, just because there's so many names on here that I've done a lot of work on. Talked about some of my favorite names there. David Walker is just fun. If you guys haven't watched any tape on David Walker and you can find it, I highly recommend going out and doing so, because he's just a fun guy to watch. He's one of those you look at and you're like, he in a lot of ways reminds me of Willie Lampkin. You look at him and you don't really think much. You're like, okay, this is cute, and then he goes out there and it's cute that they think they can stop him. So I like him a lot. He is very aggressive. He's violent, and he's just kind of one of those football guys. Really one of those money guys. David Walker is a god amongst men at the FCS level. It's so true. It's so
Hercules, Hercules, Hercules. Yeah, no, he definitely jumps off the tape, and there's always that concern about the FCS level when you drafting some guy, whether that's Steve Keim's special with Rodney Gunter or whatnot. You didn't always see that like type of jump off the tape, but if you see them definitely separate themselves between these guys and those guys, you seem to have a guy like that. So yeah, that kind of checks that box for me, and it's at a spot too where you're not like overreaching for one of your value picks, and it's what is that? It's a fourth round pick, right?
yeah, yep.
Fourth round pick. So it's not that first, second, and third round where you almost have to get a starter or a contributor. It's basically like a luxury pick where that makes a lot of sense.
Exactly. And like you've talked about, we've got guys in the room at edge that are going to play. And what you're looking for here in this situation is you're looking for a guy that can just kind of fit into that rotation, can learn. If he's good enough to get some reps right off the bat, awesome. If not, that's okay. You don't need him to. And I think that's the perfect, yeah, he fits that perfect mold. Dana coming with some more information. As we've shouted out, Dana is one of our resident experts here. And all of you guys are, and we appreciate all the information. I know Dana does a lot of work on this, so I definitely
Mm-hmm.
want to appreciate the information that she provides. Walker wasn't effective at the Senior Bowl, though good day 2 and 3. Yeah, he did not have the best day 1. I know he wasn't effective in the game, but he had, there was, yeah, was it day 2 or day 3? I'm trying to remember now. There was one day where he just opened people's eyes for sure and went, oh, that's fun. It's some of these guys, it takes them a minute, to try and settle in. It's a really different environment, and I think that's why I think so many teams put so much stock into it, because you're really stressed these guys. They're in a brand new scheme, they're with brand new coaches that they've never worked with before, going up against the best of the best, and the ones that can handle that well and make the adjustments. It shows something. It shows that their adaptability, and that's definitely something that teams value, definitely something that our team values. So Red Sea,
Mm-hmm.
I'll forgive you. I don't know if Joe, our Papa Joe, will, but I will forgive
Oh,
you for this. And I like the mock. I like all the players you got on here.
yeah, and we definitely know how much they value the Senior Bowl and whatnot, and especially with him being an FCS player. I mean, you can imagine, having a bad day at the Senior Bowl or whatnot, whether it's a day or two, just coming out there and having to go against guys that are on that different level. Maybe it's just like it took them a day to adjust. That makes a lot of sense, and that's why you have those 30 visits and everything else that are built in. So that makes a lot of sense.
Yes, agreed. Let's move on here to Chris Young. Chris, I saw you in the chat there at one point. I hope you're still with us. I always hate when we end up talking about somebody's draft and either they had to hop off or they haven't joined. They join like right at the end. It's like, yeah, I'm so sorry. I think Chris is still here. Chris went with the first round. There was a trade there. Don't necessarily see the details. That's okay. We went with another Josh Simmons pick, one we've seen a few times, and we will probably see them a few more. Then in the second round with the 47th pick, we went Trey Amos, cornerback out of Ole Miss, another name that's been rising a lot that I've seen lately. He's getting a lot more love. Then we got Princely. I'm just going to make you say his name, Uban Mielen. That's right. I got that one down finally. Took me, I only spent 20 minutes rewatching that video and saying it over and over and over again just so I could get it right. Then with pick number 78, we got Omar Norman Lott, another name that we have seen a lot tonight. People are liking ONL. I'm just going to call him ONL because that's easier for me. And then pick 116, we've got Tez Johnson, obviously the wide receiver out of Oregon, the Tank Dell 2.0, who is it's very controversial where he's going to land. I'm interested. We'll talk about him a little bit. Malachi Moore, another safety prospect. We highlighted him a couple weeks ago. One of my guys that I've looked into, kind of an undersized guy. Some questions about his long-term durability, but he's a really smart player. Played a lot of different roles in the Alabama defense, including their star position. So if you know much about the Alabama defense, if you're playing in that position, you're probably a pretty smart player. Brian Branch. Now, Malachi Moore's not Brian Branch, but just in terms of like football IQ, you've got to have that kind of level. And lastly, we've got, is that Tryon Ingram Dawkins? He is another one that I have not gotten to yet. And probably, I'm not going to lie, I'm probably, with how much time's left, I'm probably not going to get that deep into him. But if I do, I'll give you some thoughts. In fact, you know what? Now I'm just going to do it. Now I'm just going to do it for next week just because I don't know as much about him. But let's talk. Brian, what are your thoughts on Tez Johnson? Because, like I said, I know he's been one of the more controversial players and what people think he's going to be at the next level. What are your thoughts on Tez?
Is a name we've been hearing for the past about 2 months. I struggle with these wide receiver prospects and how they fit into this Drew Petzing offense. I like them to get a burner to maybe take the top off the secondary, or to take the top off like the actual defense. I like him as a prospect. I like him where they're drafting him here. I don't want, to be honest, I'm not a big fan of these wide receivers in the second round, and I know the almighty chart would also say that also. I will not be upset if they draft him. What is that, round 4? Like I said with the last mock draft, that's a spot where you're not giving up a top 100 pick where this person is expected to come in and be an immediate starter. This would be someone to come in and play a limited role, which would make a lot of sense. This team wants to run the ball 30 to 40 times, 35 times a game. So for him to come in to get maybe that 10 to 15 snaps a game, or either you're taking a shot, whether he's taking a Cliff Kingsbury-esque, wide receiver screen or jet sweep, gadget play type player. I could see that.
Yeah, I have gone back and forth on Johnson so many times. I just worry about his frame. It's Tank Dell scares everybody. I think, seeing that injury, that level of, oh my God, that play was just, it's one of those that still makes me cringe. So I don't want to see that happen to Ted Johnson. There was another highlight from way back in the day. This may date me a little bit. I don't know if anybody remembers the name Roscoe Parrish out of the University of Miami. He never really did anything in the pros. I think Buffalo drafted him, if I remember right. But he had one of the nastiest hits, or he got hit. And, he was the recipient of the hit, and it was still one of the nastiest hits I've ever seen. And he pretty much had the exact same frame as Tez Johnson, and it just scares the heck out of me that that's going to happen to him. And the guy's just going to get broken in half. But if that does not happen, and if he can manage to just avoid contact at all times, kind of JD Daniels style, he's definitely got some upside. And like Dana mentioned, he's not necessarily the burner. He's skinny Greg Dortch. Yeah, he's very twitchy. I think his top long speed might be a little bit beyond Dortch's, but he's not the absolute burner that you look for. I think his 40 time wasn't anything. Actually, I think his 40 time was really bad at the combine, if I remember right. Mm-hmm. And then he reran at the pro day, and it was better. Yeah, what was it, like a 4.5? Yeah, 4.51. Thank you, Dana. 4.51 at the combine. It was terrible. And everyone's like, you can't run 4.51 and weigh 100 pounds.
It's always funny how people go to the pro day and all these numbers get better, whether it's your reach, it's your hands, it's your 40 time. It's, when you're in a controlled environment that you can kind of be more comfortable in how that is. Yeah, he's Dana brings up a good point that, like she had said, that he's not a burner. So that would kind of turn me off to that idea. I forgot how bad the actual 40 time was. I would like more of a true burner. Maybe that comes later in the draft. Uh, but like we said, maybe these guys go round later than we think, or uh, we'll find a diamond in the rough that plays, like I said, that 10 to 12 snaps, maybe per game, whether that's how they start, and maybe towards the end of the year, they're more intricate into how we want to play football.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think Tez is. Listen, I'll take Tez before I take Isaiah Bond, and that's more of a mentality type thing because I've heard a lot of negative stuff about Isaiah Bond, especially lately. And again, I know I said I'm don't listen to stuff that comes out later, but I've been hearing stuff about Bond for years. Like that's nothing new. I think for anyone who's been following him, he's not a Monty guy. I'll put it that way. But somebody who is, I think, is a Trey Amos on this list, and he's another one. Like I said, it's been rising a little bit. Definitely different than the Will Johnson mold. Will Johnson's more of kind of a zone off man type corner, whereas Trey Amos is somebody that's going to get in your face, put hands on you, and try and shut you down at the line of scrimmage. And he's pretty effective at it too. Or at least he was at Ole Miss. Something that you got to keep in mind though with any of the Ole Miss corner, well, I think there's a Ole Miss draft, but that Ole Miss front seven was insane. So they took a lot of pressure off the cornerback. So he's somebody I think he's going to need to kind of be in the right system. It's going to be in the right fit to take some of that pressure off. But if he lands there, I definitely think it works. Dana also says, seeing someone Amos, he is more of a man corner, right? Yep, absolutely. That is 100% on that one. Definitely would be that physical, put your hands on you and punch you in the mouth type of cornerback, and I like that. I like that. But
That's
we
definitely a
do.
JG. Yeah, that's a JG type of corner. He wants them to be able to play like that. But also, if you're really good in man, there's a lot of times I've seen that you can learn zone coverage. And especially, they need a good man quarterback. They need someone to be able to. I wouldn't say they don't have to take away half the field or that quarter of the field, but they would. It would greatly help their all overall defense about that to have someone to at least threaten that ability to do that.
I agree. I think he would definitely be the type of guy that could come in and take over for Sean Murphy Bunting, in a year or two, whenever that time comes, probably sooner rather than later. And I
Sooner.
think that's something we're all interested in. So now I've defended Murphy Bunting since he came back from the injury, but all in all, we still want the upgrade. So let's move on here. We've got Brian, not you, Brian, but the other Brian. Now we've got another interesting one. I definitely want to hear your thoughts, my Brian, on this. Now I don't even know how to. This is going to be a fun one to get through. Let's talk about this trade first here. We did a trade back here with the Chargers, and that's something that I did mine as well. I think the Chargers are definitely a trade up candidate for reasons we can get into it other times, but we picked up the 22nd overall pick. We picked up the 86th overall pick, and we picked up the 181st overall pick. Hello, Brian. Yes, we are talking about yours. So
Mhm.
with that first round pick, we've got Jahad Campbell. I'm really interested in getting some thoughts on that. So we'll circle back here. 47, we've got Trey Amos, and at 78, we got Trey Harris. So going with a back-to-back Ole Miss players there. I definitely don't hate that. That would make for some fun battles in camp for sure. At 86, we've got another name we haven't seen tonight, but it's one that we've definitely seen here featured on Mock Draft Mondays is Alfred Collins. As Kyler has mentioned, he's kind of that next tier, the top of the next tier of defensive linemen. They'll probably be going in the second round, but probably very high in the second round. Then we've got tackle Ozzie Trapillo out of Boston College. We've got another David Walker selection. Good job, Brian. We've got Joshua Gray and Jordan Hancock as the last two picks. I'm really interested in talking about Jahad Campbell. We have not seen that name here tonight. We have not seen that name a whole lot here at TCR for Mock Draft Mondays. So let's talk a little bit about Jahad Campbell. We definitely know that linebacker is a need. It's somebody that we've seen. Isn't Campbell also coming off an injury? Robert, are you talking about Jahad Campbell? I don't think so.
Mhm.
I do not believe so. I think he's pretty
He,
healthy.
he has
I
a
don't.
shoulder injury. He
Does
has
he
a
have a shoulder?
shoulder injury.
Okay.
I believe he has
Okay.
a shoulder injury. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Dana, for also putting that in there. He has a shoulder injury, which a lot of the big experts, I guess, or big names uh, that have him maybe slipping out of the first round. Um, First off, this Brian didn't spell his name right, so -1. I'm just kidding. Um, it's a different name. This definitely just goes against the almighty chart about taking a linebacker. The Steve Keim chart would be taken out with black magic and would love this. Um, would probably love this. Maybe even 10 picks higher. I digress. Um, I don't hate him as a prospect. I just don't want to overdraft him as a prospect. He could be a great player. Um, there is a lot of Alabama linebackers that have been taken that I thought were going to be decent, and I have been burned on them. That doesn't mean this person's going to be bad. This is my Monty showing Keim how to draft a linebacker round one. LOL. Well, um,
100.
I wish Monty will email this to him and actually maybe have Keim evaluate the film, and maybe have Bidwell pay the absorbent price that Keim charges for that. Um, or maybe Clutch Sports can fit the bill, or whatever Keim's doing now, probably being some draft expert for his favorite buddy Colin Coward, so he can trash the Cardinals on his show if he wants to. I don't want to get too far away from that, but I like the other names on the list. Alfred Collins is a name that I liked um, out of Texas. I did watch some Texas games this year. He does stand out on film. It's definitely a big body. I thought he had pretty solid technique. Granted, there's a reason he's going to be towards that late third round, probably fourth round, as they have it on here. But he's a name that we haven't talked about. I do like. Uh, I give this a solid B minus, and B for Brian, and then and then incomplete B minus. I'm kidding.
Okay. Okay. So you tilted the eye. Okay. My thought on Jihad is this. Look, I think that Jihad could be one of the top 10 to 15 players in this draft. And at the same time, I really don't want the Cardinals to draft him. Like, if that makes any sense whatsoever. Just I think there are better options that are going to impact the team more, and we can get linebackers at other places, especially with some of the guys that like you mentioned that we've signed. You don't necessarily need. We've got Mac Wilson, who's going to be that guy. You don't necessarily need to overdraft a linebacker in the first round, but if you're going to do it, Jihad is not the worst one in the world to do it with. He, I think, is the best linebacker in 3 different phases of this game over some of these other guys. I think he's the best cover linebacker in the game. I think he's the best blitzing linebacker in the game, or in this class. He's a converted edge. He's really good at dissecting the run and shooting gaps. But the one area where he really struggles at is if you get hands on the guy, if an offensive lineman actually manages to get hands on the guy, he's probably going to win the rep, because Jihad just does not have the best stack and shed ability. I see a lot of that in the player analysis of him, that he's got the strength and speed to be a really good stack and shedder. And I agree, he does. He just doesn't do it ever. Like, we just haven't seen it. He either beats the guy to the spot or he's getting blocked. So I think that is a kind of a concern. And we've talked about the guys that we've already brought in that are more kind of the coverage athletic linebackers. I think we need more of a thumper. So as much as I like Jihad as a prospect, I don't necessarily know if I would love him here. But if he's the best player available and that's the way Monty wants to go, I trust Monty.
Yeah, I also agree with I think it was David in the chat put on there. I don't really love the trade back value that we're getting for going down that far. Uh, Now I understand some of these trade. I've never used this one. Getting teams to accept trades on here sometimes is quite questionable, I guess, to put that nicely. Um, for figuring out, what would it cost. Um, I think they should probably get more for going down that far. That's just me. But like you said, if this was the trade back, I wouldn't love the prospect just there. just because it's not a position they normally would take there. As far as premium position, affect the game right away. I don't know if this is where they would want to go. He's an interesting name if he falls. If he falls down to the early second round or if you can get him at 47, I'll be doing backflips. But there in the first round, or even a trade up from which Monty doesn't usually do. Um, I just don't love him as a first round pick. I just won't lie to you guys.
No, I think that's totally fair. And Paul G brings up a really good point here. And you could just take this outside of us, but just talking about some of our first round linebacker failures, we know this, Simmons, Collins, Cody Brown, Buster Davis. But if you just look at the league across the board and how many first round linebackers just didn't pan out, it's more common that you see these later round guys that are the ones that are the long term starters. I think Devin White's the last one that's coming to my brain that sort of worked out.
Roquan Smith is up there.
Yeah.
Roquan was a top linebacker. That's the one that came to my mind. That he was the last one that's still, and you could even argue if he's even. I mean, he's a great play. I mean, he's great at his position, but is he the like Fred Warner, I believe, was a second or third round pick for the Niners. So you can get value with these other guys that do fall. Now that doesn't mean that he's not going to be a good player. I just don't know if that's the direction that they would go, but it is an interesting name to be different.
Yeah, and Robert's got another good point here. I do believe in taking players in round one that play premium positions: quarterback, trenches, wide receiver, center. I like that. I think that position. I think interior offensive line just gets underrated in general. Like I said last week, if you're not going to pay them the money that they're making, then probably not the worst idea to draft them. But hey, unfortunately. Oh, wide receiver, linebacker isn't one of them. Yeah, it's unfortunately it's not. It just isn't. This isn't football in the 1980s like Steve Keim thought it was. So I don't anticipate us to be valuing linebacker very highly. But again, Brian, I do like the fact that you threw out something different there. I do think that I could see a scenario where it did happen. I don't think it's, again, there's not a lot of things that I think that are completely off the board other than players with just major character concern issues. And I'm not even talking about like motor issues. I'm talking about major character concern issues. So let's move on here to Greedy Green. I like that name just right off the bat. I like the Greedy Green. Let's talk about your mock here. Sorry, I gotta squint a little bit. Yep, okay. This one's a little bit smaller for me, so I cannot necessarily read all those trade details, so I apologize. But there is definitely some movement going on in this draft. There's several trades here going on with Minnesota. Thank you, Kyler. Kind of helps a little bit. There we go. Okay, I can see that now. Okay, let's talk about this. Trade back with Minnesota. They get pick 16. We get pick 24, 97, and a second round pick. Then we also traded back from 24. We traded out of the first round completely. So we go back into the second round. We also give up pick 225. In exchange, we get pick 42, pick 73, and a second round pick from the Jets. And then there was another trade there with the Lions. They got our pick 115. We got pick 117 and 196. So let's now get into some of the players here. So with our first second round pick at 42, we got Tate Ratledge, interior offensive lineman out of Georgia. Again, give me a big old country boy with a mullet at guard all day. I'm happy with that. 47, we got Darian Porter, cornerback out of Iowa State. 73, we got Jalen Royals, the wide receiver out of Utah State. We talked about him a little bit. 78, Kyle Kennard out of South Carolina. With pick 97, we've got another Alfred Collins. Now we're starting to see Alfred show up a little bit more. And then at 117, a name that we have not really seen, not really talked about, Jonas Sanker. And I'm going to ask you, Greedy, if you're in there in the comments. I think I know where that one comes from, but correct me if I'm wrong. There is Jonas Sanker, one of the ones that we met with for our 30 visit. Am I right or wrong on that? Help me out on that one, chat. Then at 152, we got Jack Kaiser. Talked a little bit about him, the run-stopping linebacker out of Notre Dame. And at 196, Vernon Broughton. And I believe, again, that was AZ Jace. He has been really high on Vernon Broughton. I've been seeing some tape about him. And yeah, again, defensive line class this year, just silly. just silly. So I don't know, Brian. Do you remember if is Jonas Sinker? Is that one of the ones the safety? Because I know we've met with like 3 different safeties for a 30 business. I cannot remember all of their names. I actually can't remember any of their names right now. But that may be one of them because that just triggered something. So I'll be keeping an eye out for that.
You could be right about that. Off the top of my head, I do not know for sure. I don't want to be wrong on here. I don't want Father Joe to make me repent and do any extra chores as he's already said he's going to make us do. So I'll just make sure that I will not tell lies. I will not tell lies. I will not tell lies.
And Papa Joe, Brian did clean up his room for this, so he did his chores prior to this.
Yeah, I cleaned up the guest room, not my room. But like I said, will not tell lies. I will not tell lies. But
All right. I was trying to cover for you there, but no, let's get back to this. Enough of our inside jokes there. Sorry, these guys are like, what are they talking about here? But okay, Brian 93 Ratledge is one of the 3 my guys, so this mock automatically gets an A. Yeah, like I said, I really like Ratledge. I don't know if where he's going to ultimately land. Your pennant shall be 10 Hail Marys. That's the best penance I've heard in my life. So you're good there. That could be a lot worse.
oh my gosh.
Yeah, Ratledge, I'm not sure where he's going to wind up landing. I don't really know if 42 is an overdraft or an underdraft or where, probably not an underdraft, but if it's an overdraft or not, I don't know. I don't care. I think it's good value, especially when you factor in all the trades and everybody we were able to get in this mock. Getting Tate Ratledge there is totally fine to me. And it's a need. It's a need. And I think he could come in and instantly, at the very worst, compete with Adams for that starting right guard slot.
Yeah, I'm guessing all these trade backs are maybe for to have picks to trade for a future player. I, uh, I don't see us trading out of the first round unless we get an absolute haul. Which not that we didn't get a haul on these picks. I would imagine Monty values that 5th-year option, and you have someone on the first round, and that is very valuable, especially for roster building. You get 5 years of controllable, uh, of a controllable player instead of that 4 years. But I do like Taylor Ratledge a lot. Like you said, that would fill that guard position, and I believe he'd be a plug and play type of player. Or, like I said earlier, you would sign a Will Hernandez, and you would have him, be able to mentor him for a year, and that would be like almost a perfect, uh, you know, exit plan for him if that's the way that they wanted to go. But these positions that were drafted on here, I like the actual positions. So the position value, I believe the almighty chart, from what I can see off of my screen, would agree with most of it. So I give this a solid greedy B plus.
Nice. And Robert's giving it a B minus. He says he's a big fan of Tate, but just around too early IMO, in my opinion. See, I knew that one. There you go. The mock is a different look, so I could appreciate that decent trade value. And yeah, I'm not, like I said, I'm not sure. Is it a bit of an overdraft? Maybe. But at this point, when you're picking up all that additional capital, I'm not sure if that's the biggest deal. And then Dana also coming in clutch and saying, Sinkers was a formal combine interview, it looks like. So thank you for confirming that. I was like, I knew when I saw that name, I was like, I have not watched a lick of tape on him, but his name is sticking out. So it's got to be why, because otherwise I had no clue, because I got nothing. But he's somebody that we've been with. So that's definitely something that I've been trying to keep up on as much as I can. Walter Football. Don't even. Walter Football has got a yeah. I was like, don't even talk. Walter Football has a tracker for 30 visits and combine invites, which is not completely up to date. It's missing, like I know it's missing all the safeties for the Cardinals, but I've been kind of trying to keep an eye on that. So if anybody's got a better source than that, please drop it in the chat below. And that maybe I shouldn't say.
I used to be a big fan of that Walter Football until there was I believe last year, they referenced somebody of being a Cardinal insider, and it was Ike J. I'll just say that, of being this all-time Cardinal insider, and kept referencing him in there. I had to kind of reassess my life when it came to thinking about that being an insider. So that's my 2 cents of commentary on that one. But I will at least check out that part of it. It looks interesting. Is like having that tracker, like you said. If you guys have anything like that, can you drop it in the comments so we can all have that, or in the Discord also. We can check that later too.
Definitely, because I think that's something that, those anytime I see those names, it's at the very least I'm taking a look at them and I want to see, where do I think they would slot in a type of mock draft scenario. So greedy,
Mhm.
the thing I'll say about the trades here is I don't know how realistic they are. I don't know if we're going to be getting as much value as you were able to extract out of some of these teams for these picks. But if we could make that happen, I definitely can see the mindset that you're going on is acquiring a lot of capital for next year. So I think I may know what your thought process was on that, but
Oh,
we'll leave that for another discussion. That
one
may be
more thing on there.
quarterback. Yeah.
If on that last one, if they do make that many trades, I want the Cardinals flight plan to have all those Monty videos of him on the phone making those trades because that will be excellent theater.
Absolutely. You could do a whole little mini series if there are that many. That would be great. I'd watch that. All right, let's move on to O cards here. All right, O cards. We got some other names that we've seen in the past, we haven't necessarily seen tonight. So I like that. We had a trade back, and this actually is coming from a different simulator. I am not as familiar with the Sportskeeda simulator, so that's will be one that I might have to check out myself as well. But we had some trade backs. It looks like don't have the details, not a problem. So we ended up picking our first round pick at 23. That would be, is that Minnesota? Remind me, I can't remember who's at 23 right now. But we got we're picking up Kenneth Grant out of Michigan. Definitely, that was a name that was probably the most mocked name to the Cardinals there for a while until that's flipped around a little bit. But then in 47, we've got Donovan Ezeraku, which I think at this point, if he falls to 47, yeah, absolutely run up to the board with that. At 48, this must have been the pick we got with that trade back. We're going with Deion Walker. I've talked about him a little bit. I'm not the biggest fan of him, but there are definitely some arguments that you could make. One of the big things I've seen is he played over 70% of the snaps at Kentucky with that frame. It's just insane. So putting him in a scheme that only asks him to play like 40 to 50% of the snaps, especially early on, I think could be a benefit to him. And if he can get healthy, there's the upside there for sure. Then at 116, we've got David Walker. Talked about him a ton. A lot of people are getting on that train. I love that. And then at 118, we've got the other tackle out of Oregon, the late first, early second rounder, Ajani Cornelius. Then we've got the interior offensive lineman with Jackson Slater at 152. Then at 218, we've got Elijah Clark. Don't know as much about him, so if anybody's got some Elijah Clark information to share, go for it. And then we've got Braden Swinson at 225. Another one of those that's probably not going to end up lasting that long. If he did, although, and you had the chance to pick him up there, could be one of the steals of the draft by far. So, O-Card's good draft. Swinson will go higher, B+. I agree with that. Brian, what are your thoughts on some of these names here?
Yeah, I like the trade back. Looks like they picked up another top 100 pick from what we can tell on there. I'm kind of with you on Dan Walker. I know we just talked about Walter Football and others. These other drafts. If you look, if you want to be, what do they call it? If you want to be a real sicko and look at the mock drafts for 2026, if you would have done that a year ago today, Deion Walker was a top 5, top 10 pick, sometimes even top 3 pick. So the talent is definitely there when it comes to him. If they get him, like we were saying, maybe if he falls to the 4th round, I think a lot of us would be okay with him there, even with the like with the value on there. I don't really agree with where these players went, but I like a lot of the players, and it doesn't seem like they've reached for anybody besides Walker, in my opinion. In the universe that Swinson is a part of the Carmen Lacey case. Um,
I'm dead, fam. I mean, that's
well,
probably the only thing that's would make that actually a reality. So, and you never know, crazier things have happened. There haven't been any actual trials yet, so who knows what names will come out. But I don't think that's likely.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big Swinson fan, especially like that at there. I think Monty would be doing. He might even start growing his hair back, and and taking that pick and whatnot. So I like the positions. I try not to fall in love with players as much as a lot of people do on here, just because, especially this year, I believe that it's going to get really jumbled come, like I said, that second to third round type of area. But the position value and the fits, I think, is where I like it. This coaching staff I have a lot of faith in. Obviously, last year Rawlis with a mediocre type of defensive cast of characters performed pretty well, especially when you consider they were like middle of the pack and actual sacks, which people probably wouldn't actually believe that. They had the same amount of sacks as the Philadelphia Eagles did during the regular season, I believe. So, and also they were middle of the pack in actual points per game. If they can make another jump into that top 10, I mean, they don't need to be a top 5 defense. That's probably not going to happen. But if they can be in that top 8 to 12, yeah, with this is the type of draft where I could see that actually happening.
Yeah, I completely agree. We definitely overperformed on from what our talent was. So adding some actual guys that can play, definitely think would be helpful. Dana, but as a Rocket 47 saves the draft for me. He is a he is solidly edge two for me at this point, and I definitely think he's in that conversation for sure. If you look at some of the other guys, because we had this conversation last week. If you look at some of the guys that may also be in that conversation, yeah, you've got James Pierce. He's got some of the motor concerns, the character concerns, right? Same with Mike Green. Shamar Stewart's got the production concerns, like none of it. I admit that 100%. After that, it's Donovan. Like that's he's the next one there. So 100%. And his bend is just crazy. Like he's the bendiest outside of Abdul Carter, I think for sure. Robert Moore here is, I mean, talk about starting strong and finishing crazy strong. Definitely won't happen. Probably not. But again, if you could pull it off, I'm absolutely going to be jumping for joy. And Robert, overall, I do think this draft, minus the reality of getting Swinson at the end, grade B plus. So, cards, congrats, you got a B plus from Robert.
Yeah, and I know Dana on there. She hasn't been a big fan of Kenneth Grant. I've kind of been a little seesaw when it comes to that. Like when the process first started, I was like really high on him. Kind of went towards the middle, kind of went back and forth with him. Yeah, and I know she had said before, I believe last week in chat when I was in there, that it's just lateral moving ability, which is definitely concerning. I I've seen that now that I kind of look at it. I try not to fall into those when someone tells you something about a player and you go look at it and you're just kind of looking at it. And you're like, wait a minute, like, do my eyes deceive me, or But I have kind of cooled off on him. Granted, they did trade down for him, so I guess that would be an area where if they wanted to do that, maybe it's a little bit lesser of a stab to the heart, but. There's definitely more prospects I would rather have than him, but and Chef Monty we trust, I guess, just in case.
And we have to get this shout out going. And I promise, Kyler, I was going to bring this up right at this time because this was the first Kenneth Grant one. So after this video, if you guys have a little bit in you, or if not, then maybe tomorrow, I would definitely recommend going and checking out Bird's Eye View, Kyler Bird's other channel there. Go check out his video. I said his channel. Go check out the video on his channel that he just did recently comparing Derek Harmon and Kenneth Grant. It was a really good breakdown, kind of talking about the differences between the two. I won't discuss it too much more because I don't want to spoil that video for you, Kyler. So go check that out. I do definitely agree with the conclusion that Kyler came up in that video. Now, maybe that's a little bit of a spoiler because I've talked about it, but still, go watch the video because it's a really good breakdown. All right. Next, we've got, I think it's Gazernick is the way that Kyler was pronouncing it, and he was saying that's correct, so I'm going to go with that. I thought it was Gazornick, so I'm going to go with Gazernick because I think that's the right. We've got Gazernick's pick up here. Got let's get into this trade. We did a little bit of a trade back here. We looks like we picked up pick 19 and pick 34 from the Bucks for pick 16. And then we moved back one more time with the Vikings. We picked up pick 24, so they're 24, not 3. Okay. And then picked up additionally pick number 97 for pick 19. And then we go with, again, Brian's guy, Walter Nolan. And we've talked about a little bit and quite a bit extensively on the channel overall. Next round, we go Trey Amos, starting to see, again, his name show up a little bit more. And a little bit later on, we ended up getting Trey Harris. So we got 3 of those Ole Miss boys here. And I think I would not be unhappy with that. They had, I think those are 3 of the better players from that team, along with Princely. So I'm not unhappy with that. In between there, of course, picking up Marcus Bow there at tackle. Curious, Gazernick, if you were there, or Gazernick, no, whichever one. Gazernick, if you're there, I'm curious to see, do you see Bow playing with more of a right tackle or a right guard? I personally think I could see him being either. I'd say he's one of those, let him fail at tackle and then move him inside. Then we've got another Femi Oladejo, another one of our 30 visits. So happy to see that on there. Jack Kaiser, talked about him a little bit. Good run stopper. Luke Kandra, and an Alfred Chisholm. He's another name. I've seen a few of my mock draft, a few of my draft people that I follow on Twitter. I've seen them actually really high on him early in the process. I haven't heard much about him lately, so I've actually got him on my list for this weekend. So I'm excited to get to him. I'm glad you had him on that mock. Any names that we've talked about most of these names, but anything that really stands out to you on this one, Brian?
No, Walter Nolan on there. We've talked about him. I would say, like I said, he's at the top of my wish list as far as if they stick and pick, or if they're able to trade down and still get him. I'd be pretty excited about that. I understand that there's other players that a lot of people like on there too. I don't know a lot of these other names when we get past we get like round 5 and over. So I will defer to somebody else. But as far as positional value, I think this is pretty good. And the almighty chart, I think this does pretty well with it. So um, Papa Joe will also be very happy with this, I believe. So you made
Agreed.
both of us happy.
Agreed, 100%. Dana coming in here. Oladejo's the raw bendy edge rusher that is actually going where raw edge rushers usually go in mocks. It's 100%. Now, the one thing I'll say differently than that is that's where they go in mocks. But apparently nowadays those guys go in the first round. Like apparently nowadays. But yeah, overall, I definitely don't think Oladejo will be a first round pick at all. So I think this is right about the range where he's going to go, and I think that's the range where we'd be comfortable picking him up as well. Gazernick, I think this is a good, solid mock. I think, again, you got the trade back in there. You got a couple trade backs, so you got to picking up some other additional capital, just taking your shots, getting some good players that can play, and continuing to just make this team better. I like it. Next on, we got a quick one here from Lance. So Lance is trying to do one of two things. Lance is either trolling the heck out of us, or he just really, really likes these players. It's one of the two. I'm kind of okay with it either way. We've got Mike Green, who, don't get me wrong, if it wasn't for some of the allegations, again, they're allegations. Nothing's been proven. No lawsuits, anything like that. But there's still a lot of question marks. Guys that Monty doesn't necessarily take early. He may take a flyer on something a little bit later. So a guy with some concerns. I don't know if he would take a flyer on somebody with these types of concerns, and you went with 2 of them back to back. For anyone who doesn't know, yes, there are allegations about Maxwell Harrison as well. I've got tweets. There was a person out there, and there's a report. It's all been suppressed because it was when he was 17, but those same allegations are out there for him as well. And then we got Joshua Farmer. Joshua, I don't think has had any of those issues. If he does, then there's definitely a theme going on here. But I don't think I've heard anything about that on Farmer. He's just a fun player. So I like all of the players. If you could just remove the players from the personalities, I think this would be a really solid mock. Unfortunately, we can't do that. So I don't necessarily think these are the players specifically. But as far as the positions, you nailed the positions. So I will definitely give you that. And I really do like Farmer. So
Yeah, I have to agree with most of it. I don't believe Mike Green is on their draft board. I have to remind people, Michael Bidwell, whether uh, ironic or not, is an ex-federal prosecutor. Some of his things are a no-go. Even Steve Keim would talk about it. There has to be this cardinal quote, like, what is it? Like character that needs to be passed. Now, whether that's ironic for you guys because of the things that Michael Bidwell has been accused of in his organization, and those are also allegations. I don't want to get sued tonight, um, but I also think that Mike Green will be gone before the Cardinals pick. I don't believe if he's there, they would take him because that would probably mean that those um, might be too much of a red flag for him to last that long. So Maxwell Harrison on there. Um, I have seen those allegations also. I believe in the second round, you can maybe take a chance like that. I also know with this being a 3 round mock, you probably couldn't trade out of picks and whatnot. So he might have just wanted to stick and pick and make the best one there. The second round cornerback would check off on, I believe, the chart. I mean, at least last year they took Melton in the second round. So this would make some sense.
And Garrett Williams the year before.
Was he a third round pick?
Touche. You're right. I forgot ours.
Okay.
Yeah, you're right.
This is
That
the
I'm
all
so,
incarcerated.
I was going to call that out here and just say, yeah, I agree with that. That's definitely the risk you're running with this one for sure. For sure. There and
Is
I'm
this a
wondering if there's
Cowboys mock draft or is this like a Cincinnati Bengals mock draft? I mean, is this the Cardinals mock draft? Jerry Jones is smiling with his yellow teeth somewhere, just waiting and hoping. Doesn't want to spend any money during the offseason, but he would definitely take somebody with a questionable record.
yeah,
So
he's gonna replace Michael Parsons with Mike Green.
and they're going to be on the podcast together too. That'll be super great. Oh my goodness.
If I'm Mike Green's agent, there's a police report or other documentations, and he was cleared in both cases. That info is already in all 32 teams' inboxes. I completely agree. And like I said, I think it's going to be interesting to see where that all lands out. It's one of those Raiders mock draft too, 100%. It's one of those things where it's really tough. Where they may, it's allegations. There's 2 allegations. I don't want to get too much into the weeds on this
No,
because
yeah, we don't
it's
have to. Yeah, we don't have to spend that much time on it. But as far as if we just boil this down to positional value, we like the players as far as them being actual NFL players slash prospects. If we could remove that and just draft them for that, we would take them. But once again, there's a reason why they're probably slipping. So
yeah, I agree. That's where there's smoke, there's fire. That's my thing. Like
gotcha.
one, yeah. So now we can move on to Mono 187. We got another Walter Nolan first round pick. Now we've in the second round we've got Elick a Mono. I always struggle with his last name. We've got Elick out of Stanford, the wide receiver. We'll talk about him in a little bit because that's a name we haven't seen too often. Got Ozzie Trapillo there in the third, David Walker in the fourth, Marcus Ware, not Mel. We got Marcus Ware in this one as the guard, and with our last pick, Ty Robinson. So these names, Ware we haven't talked about a ton, but he's definitely an interior prospect that's got some upside. He's looked very strong against the competition that he faced. That's just been kind of the big question about him. And then Ty Robinson, we've talked about some. Elick is an interesting one. I know we haven't seen his name a ton. I.O. Manor. Thank you for that, Dana. I.O. Manor. All right. So there's 2 that I've gotten down this cycle, and that's a start. Elick, I have some mixed thoughts on. He's definitely got some upside. He's got the frame. He's got the ball skills to be a really effective target at the next level. The problem is he just doesn't show it off consistently for me. There are so many reps on tape where he just plays so much under his size. He plays like a kind of like a 5'11 type guy, and he's what 6'2", 6'2", 6'3". He's got a really big frame, but he just plays under his size too often for my liking. If he can work some of that out and be more consistent, then I would be totally happy for it and be totally for it for the Cardinals. I'm worried. I just don't see it consistently enough on tape with him.
Yeah, especially if you're taking him in the second round, that'd be something that you would kind of worry about, taking him so high. It's interesting, John. This is one of the first mocks we had that there's no trade backs. They just stick and pick, and they would went with some positions where uh, I don't believe the Cardinals would take a wide receiver in the second round unless somebody fell that we didn't see that was going to fall. That's my opinion. So we'll kind of dock them a little bit there. But as far as the other picks on there, I like it. As far as, a lot of meat and potatoes, they went with the kind of where this draft is deep with on edge and defensive line, and they took a flyer on a tackle.
We've got another question here from Grand Desert. It's circling back to our Mike Green discussion here. Brian, Andrew, if Mike Green says it drops to the 4th or 5th round, do you draft him or do you completely avoid him? The prospect of recent who comes to mind was Matt Araiza, punter. And I think it's a really good comparison. Some differences there, whereas his the stuff that happened with him kind of showed up after the draft, and whereas Mike Green stuff has all come out beforehand. But overall, I mean, if you fell that late, yeah, I would absolutely take a flyer on him at that point if you thought you had the right structure in place to keep him playing. And I think it's one of those situations where if a guy is picked and he's got any of these type of questions, if Monty picks him, I just instantly throw all of that out the window. And I believe that it's nothing, because I don't think Monty would take him if he was actually concerned. So if he fell and Monty picked him, I would be fine with it 100%.
I will play a little devil's advocate. If you get passed off by 4 rounds, so you're round 4, that means teams have had 4 chances to pick you. I'd be very, very concerned what they really thought of you. Now, if he got to that 4th round and they wanted to take a chance on him, yeah, I mean, but like I said, I'd be very concerned if you got passed over 4 times, and especially with the talent. Usually in the NFL, we've seen it before. A lot of these players, they get second, third, fourth, actually second and third chances. They usually don't get that 4th or whatnot to be able to play. I don't see any scenario where they're actually there in the 4th round. So let's just say, for sake of the argument, 2nd to 3rd round. I'd be concerned why they got to, like, let's say pick 42, 50. I'd just be a little bit concerned of why that actually happened.
That's actually a fair point. I didn't think about it like that. That does. Now that you put it that way, that's actually a really good point. Yeah, if he's past, if that many teams are saying no, 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 it's not a talent thing. We know that. We know that because he's got the talent. Dane also mentioned in here Ty Robinson in the 7th is pretty wild. Yeah, it is. It is. It's definitely how some of these simulators value these guys. But on the other hand, with how deep this class is, you never know how these guys are going to get stacked by the teams. I don't think it's likely to last all the way to the 7th, probably not, but again, you just never really know. You never know. I did not think that Ivan Pace would be an undrafted free agent. Like, that one still blows my mind. I don't forgive the league for that. So Mono, overall good draft, I think, here. All right, we got Mr. Money Manette, or Money Manet. That one, I think I got right there. Okay. With a trade back going in here, we've got Donovan Ezaraku going at number 25. And I definitely think that's more in the range that we'll be seeing him going in. At 47, we got one of Kyler's favorites. We got Carson Schlesinger. That's another Cardinals draft connoisseur. He is really high on Carson, sorry. At 78, we got another Alfred Collins pick. Pretty popular one here in this community. At 89, we've got another Tate Ratledge one. We've talked about him, like him a lot. Jalen Royals, another really fun pick there. David Walker, we've talked about. Logan Brown, we haven't talked a whole lot about. I've got him coming up this weekend on my list. I'm excited because I've seen his name showing up a lot. So I will have more on him next week. So I apologize for that, Mr. Money, but I will have more information on Logan next week. And then another Ty Hamilton falling down. Or that's Ty Hamilton, sorry. Ty Hamilton there at 225. Ty Hamilton, Ty Robinson, same difference, right? But of the names that we haven't really, we've seen most of these names here. Like I said, well, I'll get to Logan Brown there. Donovan Easy again. I think that's definitely one of the names. If we ended up getting him, especially at 25, with the way some of these edges, he could end up being edge 2, he could end up being edge 5. Who knows? If we're getting Donovan E at pick 25, I am also jumping for joy on that. I love his bend. And
Yeah,
Robert is. I was going to say, Robert, real quick, is also loving this one. Slam dunk, A+, mock of the night. Robert is super happy. So we made Robert happy.
I would say A- just because, I mean, this is probably the one I've liked the most so far. And I'll just, taking a linebacker in the second round, maybe the chart doesn't quite like it. But it makes a lot more sense to do that. After you traded down, you added another, looks like top 100 pick on there. So you've given yourself some wiggle room. And it makes a lot more sense than drafting Jihad Campbell in that same area. So,
yes, no, I completely agree. I don't mind Carson at 47 because I think the need is big enough. I am going to laugh when Monty actually breaks his own chart and we have to kind of update that a little bit. And then Joe is sitting there like, no, Monty, you broke your own chart. Just kidding, Papa. I think that was more blasphemous than anything Kyler said ever. So.
We're gonna have to like AI one of those Twitter charts where Papa Joe's just staring out like in Christmas Vacation. Instead of looking at like him building like his own pool, it's gonna just see him staring off into the chart, just ripping in half in the wind. So, the chart's actually okay with the second round linebacker, I think. Okay, yes. You know what? I sit corrected. So
we are okay with second round linebackers, so we're good with that. So not only do you get an A+ from Robert, but you get you get a passing grade from the chart. But I actually really like middle linebacker on day 2. Cool. Yeah. I think it's, especially with where some of the value is on this, I think it's the most likely landing spot. I really don't think it's going to happen round 1. I really don't think Jihad's going to be a Cardinal at all. Dad talked about needing a linebacker high today, and it makes sense 100%. 100%. It is a need, I think, for us. The guys that we got, I think, are more rotational guys. I really do see that. They're the pass coverage type linebackers. You'll see them in sub packages more. You need that thumper. You need that guy to play alongside Mac Wilson in early downs. That it's got some athleticism that can flow, especially with adding Dalvin Tomlinson is going to eat up those bodies. You want another guy next to Mac that can get in the backfield and create some disruption. So I think taking it at 47, even not only does it match the chart, but I also think a lot of us are happy with that and agree with that.
I know Brian Baldinger, ex NFL Network guy. He had a breakdown on Carson, and it's pretty interesting. It's a quick 1-minute clip, or I think it might even be a little bit longer than that. Saw some good things on there. Yeah, football guy of mine that I actually trust. Usually straightforward, straight spitting about it. So I like the pick.
Them Baldinger breakdowns.
I do too.
Cool. All right, let's go on to Justice 21 here. Justin also has a trade back, and we've got another. This one is another trade back candidate that I've talked about here, Houston. We could see some more business being done there. In this scenario, we pick up their 25th and their third round pick, number 89, and they get our 16th. Always interested to know who these players or who these teams are trading up for. I would bet in this situation would be for a tackle. I mean, I know, it's auto pick, but just who people think they would be trading up for. And I definitely think tackle in this situation. For us, we wound up landing Derek Harbin. Actually haven't seen his name a whole lot tonight, but we know he's kind of been the consensus favorite first round pick for a lot of Cardinals fans. Again, I'm going to shout out that video. If you have not checked out Kyler's video on Harmon versus Grant, I would highly recommend checking that out. Then at 47, we go Trey Harris, again, the wide receiver we've been talking about quite a bit here tonight out of Ole Miss. 78, we got Brady Swinson. 89, Omar Norman Lott. 115, we got another new name there. Got Jacob Parrish. I believe he is out of Kansas State. We got another Logan Brown and a Sean Dolak. Sean, I think it's one. I know nothing. I only have it on my list. Sorry. That is not Robert. You are doing great here. I'm going to give you an F minus just because I'm taking all of the grades that you took off of other people's and I'm deducting that. No, I'm just kidding. No, this is a really good draft, Robert. I think you know that already. Of course, anytime you got Derek Harmon, Trey Harris, and Brady Swinson as your first 3 picks, I don't think you can really be going wrong there.
Yeah, this is definitely a great top 100. I mean, the first 4 picks seem like slam dunks to me as far as like hitting those needs where we want it, and then just to round it off, icing off the top. So you got some pretty good value in that actual trade back. Like you said, I'm guessing Houston's trading up for a tackle because they have revolving doors protecting CJ Stroud already this year. So they're a trade up candidate. How I bow to the F minus.
No, Robert knows it. I don't think Robert's submitted too many mocks that I've ever not liked. So I think he knows that. If he doesn't, he does now. So
No, like I give this a solid. I would say this is the second A I'm going to give out. Just straight A.
yeah, I go very solid A, leaning towards. I don't know enough about some of the later players to give you quite the A plus, but I should probably just throw just because you put him on there. There you go. I'll do this for you, Robert. Just because you put him on there, I will add Sean Dolak to my list because I don't even think I've heard the name before tonight. So that's on me. So I'll fix that and I will come back with some Sean Dolak notes next week for you. See if we can get you that A plus. Now we got Get Gannon too, one of my boys on Twitter. Going Nick Scourton in round 1, which is an interesting one. We've not seen that name, so we can talk about that a little bit. In round 2, we got Josh Simmons. Really interesting there. Got Scourton in round 1 and Josh Simmons round 2. I think more commonly you've seen those 2 names kind of flipped. So let's definitely want to talk about that. Then we've got another Trey Harris pick there in round 2. Tate Ratledge and Jamari Caldwell in round 3. Of course, I'm happy with that. Jack Kaiser in round 5. And is that Mello Dotson there, cornerback in round 7. That was a trade back that we did. Another one with Houston. Looks like we picked up, we ended up picking up another second, another 3rd round pick there. So Brian, what do you know about Nick Scourton?
Not a lot. Haven't seen. I would say from what I've read about him, just some scouting reports. I haven't been a big fan. I believe he was a top visit for us, though, if I am remembering that correctly. One of those guys where I'd have to see the trade back on that. And I would be guessing that they would be trading back and just trusting that board. I don't love the prospect, but just because I don't like a prospect doesn't mean that they're not going to be a good NFL player. And I do sometimes, we all fall into this, at least I think so, that we expect what you did in college will exactly translate what happens in the NFL. That is not always the case. So there is that possibility, and I guess I'm leaving myself open to just wiggle out of in 20 whatever days if they pick him in, or week 3 and he has 3.5 sacks or 2 sacks game. I told you so. But no, not a big fan right now, to be honest.
Cool. And Matt coming in here with, you know what, this is actually a good point. Well, I'm going to touch on this real quick. I learned something last year and I'm going to share this, and this is something really fun. So apparently it is not top 30. That is not the actual official term. And apparently people who have been in and around the draft, in and around teams, they know that it's not top 30. So when they see all of us who haven't had that experience saying top 30, they go, ha, 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 you don't know what you're talking about. Just a heads up. It's actually 30 visit. I don't know. I just learned that last year. Fun. But yeah, we did use a 30 visit on Scourton. Just saw that today. Here's my thoughts on him. He is the prime example of why that Texas A&M defense is just not good. He had 10 sacks his last year at Purdue. He goes over to Texas A&M. What do? They turn him into a contain guy. He cuts that in half. He only finishes with 5. So I think Scourton's upside is really nice. I don't know if I'd necessarily be reaching there at number 25 for that. I do think that is a little bit of an overdraft there. But with Simmons falling to 47, like I said, it's kind of one of those situations with Detroit where you looked at their draft a couple of years ago and you're like, well, if you just kind of shuffle around some of these picks, it's actually a great draft. And come to find out it was a great draft. So I think this could definitely work. Scourton in the first, I'm not sure if that's where I would personally take him, but this works out too. And Robert Hearson, I like this draft. The trades, except Scourton, A&M just doesn't do their players justice. Lots of players transferred out of there. It's 100% true. He actually talked about this quite a bit. Apparently, Bo Brock from PHX and I were talking a little bit about this when we were talking about Stewart and talking about some of the assignments that they had those guys doing. I'm just like, it was terrible. Like Stewart's assignment as a 5T on outside runs. So like he's on the edge, right? He's outside the tackle. They would do outside runs. His assignment was to inside crash to take away the cutback lanes, and then the linebackers flowed to take away the edge. Who designed that scheme? Fire them yesterday. That's my thoughts. And Robert likes this one. Overall, good draft, grade B-. So good job, my boy. Get Gannon. Get Gannon too. And I think his actual handle right now is Get Gannon Trey Hendrickson.
I believe, yes, that is his handle. Yeah.
Yep, and he just changed the picture too for the league meeting. It's great. I love it. All right, moving on to Red River Boat here. We got to be closing in on the end here. I know it's getting a little bit late, so we'll try and go through these pretty quickly as we get through. We'll just kind of highlight some names that we may not have seen. Armand Menbu, we've talked a little bit about, but we have not seen him on there. Definitely one of those tackle options that if they fell to us at 16, I think we would all be really happy with. Round 2, we went with the Toledo Darius Alexander, the Senior Bowl standout. Round 3, we've got Kyle Kennard and Jalen Noel. And Jalen Noel, we've talked about previously on the channel, not necessarily tonight, but he's one of those slot receiver options. He's the one that I prefer. I think Kyler mentioned this too. He likes him more than Higgins. I think Higgins, some more stuff has been coming out of him, on him, some of the deeper analytics, and people are starting to realize he's kind of just Keon Coleman. But I digress on that. Jalen Noel, I really like. Round 4, we've got Charles Grant, offensive guard. Round 5, we've got Danny Stutzman, the inside linebacker to Oklahoma. I think he's being really undervalued. And in number 7, Jabbar Muhammad. And he's actually a name I have seen a little bit more recently. So I'm going to have to figure out why. I want to figure out a little bit more about him because I have seen that name showing up a little bit more. What are your thoughts on Membu specifically and Noel, just because we haven't seen them as much?
Yeah, Membu, I really like him as a prospect. I heard a lot of draft people that I trust. I know Benjamin Albright, if he had to guess today a couple weeks ago, that he had Membu going in the top 5. I have heard from ex players that have gone to that school that they believe that he's going to be gone before the Cardinals even have a chance to get him. So him being there is kind of unrealistic to me. I just don't see how he would drop down that far with just those other teams in front of us having that need at tackle. I guess if he slipped down to like that 10 area, maybe you could try to talk Chicago into trading up, because they just gave away a lot of draft capital to try to rebuild that offensive line with duct tape. So maybe that would be something we could look into. That being said, if he magically falls down to us and he's the pick, I don't hate it. I don't hate it at all.
Yeah, I think, like I said, I think if he actually fell down and he was there, that's another one that we probably would jump for joy and say, yeah, run that pick in. But I don't necessarily think it's going to happen. Jalen Noel, I think, is definitely more realistic. I know he's been projected as kind of more in the second round, but you can see these wide receivers kind of move all up and down the place. You never know where they're actually going to get drafted. If we could get him in the 3rd, I think he absolutely fits what we need. He's definitely got the speed that we're looking for out of the slot. He's got some of that twitch that we're looking for. So overall, I think this is a pretty solid draft. I mean, like I said, in terms of realism, may not necessarily be there. I've seen Darius Alexander going back end first round. That sometimes So does he actually fall that far? Who knows? But overall, I like the draft if you could get some of the players where you got them. Whether it's realistic or not, I don't know. But as far as the players, good pick. And Robert agrees, good trade value, addressing main needs, good developmental players, good draft overall, B+.
Mm-hmm.
All right. We have another one, or is that the end? Did we make it? We made it. All right.
We made it.
We went just over a little bit, 20 minutes over 2 hours. So here I am going, all right, I'm going to see if I can beat Kyler's 2 hour thing. Yeah, I couldn't even come close. So Kyler, congrats on keeping us at the 2 hour mark, because it's not as easy as it looks at all. And we only had 16 this time. We had 20 last week. So I guess that just says I should shut up and stop talking as much. On that note, guys, we will definitely get you out of here. Brian, why don't you shout yourself out? Let everyone know again where they can follow you, where they can find you.
Yeah, so I'm on Twitter at YoungFocusVA. You can either find me on there or just find me trolling Andrew and his comments and whatnot on there also. I usually will follow people back if I can, as long as you're not too much of a you're just not a nice person. I've been trying to be a better person this year, and I need to work on that myself. But yes, Twitter at YoungFocusBA.
Thank you for the shout out, Robert. Again, I really just, this is one of my favorite times of the year is draft season, and this segment here has been one of my favorite times of the week ever since I've been kind of in the community, and now actually getting a chance to sit here and host was actually really fun. Thank you, Kyler, again for providing the technical support on the background. Thank you, Grandizer, for being here and sticking around with us and bearing with some of my inability to speak at times and say names. It happens. It's Monday. That's going to be my excuse for that. So on that note, I think I will let you guys go. You have a wonderful night. We will see you next week. We are down to two more, and then we will be at the actual draft. I've got some things that I'm interested in doing for the draft that I'd love to do on here. We'll kind of work out some of the logistics and see what that looks like, but I do have I will be working from home on the day of the draft, and I'll be off around about 3:00, and then I am off on the 25th the entire day. I took the entire day off, so maybe hopping in and out at certain points to do live stream just to try and catch up, because I don't know what anyone else's schedule is looking like, but just to kind of recap night one and see what that looked like. So have a great night, guys. We will see you next week. Kyler, feel better. He should be back next week as long as he's feeling good, and he will take over, and I will slide back into the co-host seat. And if we can get Brian back on to do a little 3-person panel, we will do that. Good night, guys.